Chapter 31:12. As the mother nest of this world, Fina had countless subordinates. Moreover, they were all at the godly king realm. She suddenly expressed that she wanted to follow Zichen. This made Zichen feel as if a huge pie had fallen on his head. He felt a little dizzy. This surprise came too quickly. However, he did not let this huge surprise get to his head. Instead, he asked in confusion, "How can I trust you?" Fina glanced at Heavenbreaker, who was beside her. Zichen also looked at Heavenbreaker. Heavenbreaker said, "Although it's very annoying, it's still trustworthy." Zichen nodded and said, "All right then. What do I need to do?" "You just need to take me with you when you leave. As for what you want to do now, it's up to you," Fina said. "Breaking this world requires a huge amount of energy. Although I can break it effortlessly, it will consume a lot of energy." Heavenbreaker looked at Zichen and said. After hearing Heavenbreaker's words, Zichen knew that he would need to make some adjustments. It would probably be very strenuous. However, he would not leave now. Even if he wanted to leave, it would definitely not be now. This was because this place was very suitable for godly kings to break through. He needed to let himself grow. At the same time, he also needed to wait for Tyrant and the others to arrive. He was not sure if there was a lower level. However, with Heavenbreaker's ability to break through space, he did not need to worry about where he could go after reaching the 8th stage. This was because he did not plan to go there. He was going to return to the divine world. I need to break through and grow. However, since he had promised Fina, he would become allies with these creatures from another spacetime. In this case, it seemed like he would not be able to fight. Fina said with a smile, "Survival of the fittest. It's the same everywhere. You can continue to fight here. Your dark heavenly ant can also continue to participate in the battle." "Can I?" Zichen asked. "Of course you can. Normally, when the people from that city can't kill us, we will set up a battlefield ourselves. Through life and death battles, we will select and nurture the outstanding ones. Now that you have the dark heavenly ant, you can put it into the battlefield." As such, it couldn't be better. He didn't know when Tyrant and the others would arrive. Zichen didn't want to waste any time. Under Fina's lead, he headed towards the battlefield. The battlefield was huge, and the low-level creatures living in it were killing each other. Paji appeared beside Zichen. Looking at the battlefield, a light flashed in her eyes. She was very satisfied. Looking at the satisfied smile on Paji's face, Zichen immediately opened up his world channel. An endless stream of dark heavenly ants swarmed towards the battlefield. The space-time creatures that were originally fighting seemed to have received a new order. They stopped fighting and charged towards the dark heavenly ants. A large-scale battle broke out. "Don't worry, this place is safe enough." Fina glanced at Paji and said to Zichen. Zichen nodded and released the queen ant. The queen ant had already known everything that happened here through Paji. She didn't have any objections. It was rare to have such a place to improve. Naturally, she was very happy. "You will stay here to grow," Zichen said to the queen ant. The queen ant nodded to show that she had no objections. Zichen left with Fina. He was going to go into seclusion and cultivate wholeheartedly. Su Mengyaro and the others appeared in his world channel. Fina arranged their respective residences for them. Those spacetime creatures that had transformed into human form seemed to have received an order. They were no longer hostile towards Zichen and the others. Heavenbreaker didn't enter Zichen's world channel again. Instead, he stayed in this area. During this period, Zichen had asked about Heavenbreaker's identity. However, Heavenbreaker told him that his memory was damaged and he had forgotten about it. Clearly, he was trying to brush him off. As for Fina saying that Heavenbreaker would only recognize an owner, Zichen didn't ask about it. It didn't matter if Heavenbreaker recognized an owner or not. It was fine as long as Heavenbreaker was really helping him. Outside the area where the powerhouse from another spacetime was stationed, the natives were still waiting. The threat that Zichen posed to them was too great. Naturally, they didn't want him to live. Even though they knew that the odds were against him, they still waited here. In another area, Those rank 7 gods from the God clan were also waiting here. As long as these natives didn't give up, they wouldn't either. After all, Zichen's potential was too great. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. There was no movement in the depths. A month was enough for Zichen to go in for a long time before he was killed. 2 months, 3 months. Until a year had passed, Zichen still hadn't come out. These natives were almost certain that Zichen had died in there. This guy is dead for sure. We should go now. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have come out to warn him. What a waste of time. A rank 7 gods said unhappily. At the same time, he glanced at Tai Jian, his eyes full of sarcasm. Tai Jian had bet on Zichen. If Zichen died, Tai Jian would get nothing. In this year, although Tai Jian had been staying here, he also knew what happened in the city. Tai Jian's forces were being suppressed by other natives. Tai Jian was in a bad mood, not only because there was no news about Zichen, but also because of the God clan's deliberate sarcasm and behavior. He knew that he would be suppressed after helping Zichen. What he didn't expect was that the God clan would suppress him too. Those rank 7 natives left some backup in the front and then left. During this time, they sent some rank 6 gods to guard here. Bo Yuan was also transferred by Tai Jian. Tai Jian's forces were being suppressed, so he had to go back and take charge. Otherwise, his forces would collapse. Sir, is Zichen really? Bo Yuan looked at Tai Jian. Tai Jian shook his head slowly and said, those rank 7 gods couldn't do anything to him in the city, let alone here. Don't worry, he won't die so easily. You stay here and let me know if there's any news. Bo Yuan nodded. Next, he and some other rank 6 gods from other forces waited here. This wait lasted for decades. There was no news for decades, so more rank 6 gods left. Soon, another decade passed. There were only 2 rank 6 gods left here. One was a rank 6 god clan native, and the other was Bo Yuan. After waiting for decades, Zichen still hadn't come out. Whether it was the natives or the god clan, they had all given up. Only Bo Yuan still believed that Zichen was still alive. In the core area where the powerhouses of the space-time creatures lived, Zichen, who had been in seclusion for 100 years, had countless resources to refine. As the God King's soul essence in his hand was refined and disappeared, a powerful aura was released from his body. This was the aura of a rank 5. He had broken through. P.S. I've basically figured out how to post. I'll continue to post. It seems like I can only post once a day. Everyone, at the public account. You'll be able to figure it out in a few days. Chapter 31:13. After cultivating in seclusion for more than 100 years, Zichen broke through again and reached the 5th rank. He was very satisfied with this breakthrough speed. Aside from the fact that this place was very suitable for the divine race to improve their cultivation, the main reason was that he had a large number of divine king's soul essences. Resources were the most important thing on the path of cultivation. Without resources, no matter how talented one was, it would be difficult for them to advance. While breaking through, the Saber Ancestors Tablet and the Wing Ancestors Tablet also had to follow. This way, he could ensure the greatest increase in his combat strength. After breaking through, Zichen didn't rest. He continued to refine resources, waiting for the next breakthrough. 100 years had passed. He didn't know what the situation on the next level was like. If the monk and the others came to this world and were surrounded by the natives, it would be troublesome. Not long after Zichen's breakthrough, Su Mengyaro and the others also reached the 5th rank. Reaching the 5th rank was naturally delightful. During these years, Heaven Breaker, who had devoured many divine kings' soul essences, also said that he could break through this space effortlessly. As long as Zichen wanted to leave, he could do so at any time. Zichen still had doubts about this. Moreover, the monk and the others hadn't come yet, so he naturally couldn't leave. On this day, Zichen suddenly thought of a problem and immediately went to find Heaven Breaker. Heaven Breaker was stunned when he heard Zichen's words. "Why? Can't I?" Zichen asked. Heaven Breaker said, "I can only break open the space. As for where the space is after breaking open, I can't guarantee." Zichen said unhappily, Then you said you can take me away. Heavenbreaker said, of course I can take you away, but you said you want to go to the lower level. This is extremely difficult. Zichen came to find Heavenbreaker because he wanted Heavenbreaker to open the lower level space so that he could find the monk and tell him some things. Or rather, he could directly bring them up. Heavenbreaker glanced at Zichen and said, I can break open the space many times, again and again, and I can always reach the place you said. However, the lower level is too small, and I didn't take the initiative to confirm the location. It will be very troublesome. Thus, Zichen had to give up on this idea and continued to refine the Divine King's soul essences. Time passed. Everything was calm. In the huge battlefield, the dark heavenly ants were undergoing baptism after baptism of blood. Through countless battles, the dark heavenly ants were constantly growing. Due to the Queen Ant's breakthrough, many dark heavenly ants had also broken through to grade 5 over the years. At the same time, the Ant Queen had also reproduced many dark heavenly ants over the years. They all started with Wang Yiping and continued to grow after the bloody battle. Their numbers were many times more than when Zichen first came to this world. Everything was just as Fina had said. It would take the Ant Queen countless years to reach her level. This was because the dark heavenly ants paled in comparison to the creatures from another spacetime, be it in terms of quantity or grade. The Ant Queen's clone, Pago, was standing in the middle of the battlefield, bored. This battle was completely under the control of the Ant Kings. Her only purpose here was to help Zichen hold the contribution token and look at the numbers on it. The numbers continued to increase, reaching an astronomical figure. She had heard that one could use contribution points to exchange for resources in the city. It was said that it was very cheap. Looking at the numbers on the contribution token, she was a little worried about the exchange. What if Zichen had exchanged for everything but still hadn't used up all the contribution points? Pago's worry was naturally unnecessary. She wasn't worried, she was just bored. The battlefield was a huge depression. She sat barefoot on it, swinging her slender legs gently as she looked at the battlefield below. A ray of light suddenly appeared on the battlefield. That ray of light was an Ant King. The Ant King went to find the Ant Queen and transferred the rule power it obtained from the dark heavenly ants to the Ant Queen. When it was transferring, a portion of it would be absorbed by the Ant King. After the Ant Queen obtained the energy, a portion of it would be used to grow, while the other portion would be used to give birth to new dark heavenly ants. This process repeated endlessly. As she had nowhere else to go, she had to witness such a scene every day. Compared to the dark heavenly ant, those creatures from another spacetime were much more independent. They could grow in battle, level by level. When they reached the 5th stage, they would show signs of transforming. After reaching grade 5, they would leave as the highest grade of the dark heavenly ants was grade 5. She watched in boredom for more than 200 years. During this period, she didn't cultivate, but her realm grew naturally. Pago, who had been maintaining this posture, suddenly raised her beautiful eyebrows. She slowly turned her head and looked in a certain direction. That direction was the city where the Protoss lived. It had been more than 200 years since Zichen fought in the city. In these 200 years, the Aborigines had gone from being worried and vigilant about Zichen to calming down and finally forgetting about him. They had already concluded that Zichen was dead and no longer paid attention to Zichen. However, the Iron Sword faction was still not doing well. Compared to 200 years ago, the Iron Sword faction had lost 2/3 of its members. Other than a small number who died in battle, the rest had left the Iron Sword faction and joined other factions. All of this was due to Iron Sword and Bo Yuan's obstruction of the Aborigines 200 years ago. Originally, the Protoss believed that Zichen would definitely return. After joining the Iron Sword faction, there would definitely be many benefits. However, Zichen did not return. The Iron Sword faction was suppressed like never before. As a result, the number of members decreased again and again. Fortunately, the Iron Sword faction was still in charge of the faction. As a result, the faction was barely holding on. However, the treatment was much worse than before. Saint Rentoin of the Saint Lun family had not been doing well for the past 200 years. Although no one had direct evidence to prove that he had colluded with Zi Chen, he was still being suppressed all these years. It could be said that he was barely alive. As for his advancement, there was no need to think about it. From that day onwards, the Saint Lun family did not provide him with any resources. He stayed in the family every day like a young master who was just waiting to die. In these 200 years, his realm did not improve at all. Saint Rentoin and the Iron Sword faction, one was the most miserable among the Aborigines and the other was the most miserable among the Protoss. On this day, a teleportation light lit up and a group of people came to the city from the lower level. The city that had been peaceful for more than 200 years had some ripples because of this. Is this the second level? It seems to be different from what Lord Zhang expected. Well, since everyone is in the city, there shouldn't be any danger. It's been more than 200 years. With Zi Chen's methods, he should have made a great name for himself here. Let's go and ask someone. A bald monk walked out of the light shield and began to inquire about Zi Chen. This name that had almost been forgotten appeared in everyone's sight again. Chapter 31:14. After more than 200 years, Monk brought people to this floor. Almost all the people who stayed back then were here. Zhong Haotian, Li Ari, Longhu, Luo Yi, and the others were all here. Even Kang Mo was here. This friend, I would like to ask you if you know Zi Chen? Monk quickly found a member of the Divine Clan. He was very good at picking people. He found a third class because he was a fourth class. Being stopped suddenly, the third class didn't look good. However, after feeling Monk's fourth class aura, he could only suppress his unhappiness and said, no. Monk was puzzled and said, that's impossible. With his troublemaking personality, he shouldn't be unknown after 200 years. Is it because he's been oppressed here, so he's keeping a low profile and waiting for Lord Zheng to come to this world and show his power? The third class listened to Monk's nagging and was very dissatisfied. However, he was soon attracted by a number. 200 years. Previously, he felt like he had heard the name Zi Chen somewhere before. However, he couldn't remember where. Now that he thought of what happened 200 years ago, he immediately remembered. 200 years ago, there was a big battle in the city. A fourth class killed many fifth class and sixth class. In the end, he escaped from the siege of a group of seventh class. That person was Zi Chen. Monk was happily thinking about how to show his power. Li Ari noticed the change in the third class expression and asked, you know Zi Chen, right? The third rank glanced at Li Ari and said uncertainly, 200 years ago, there was a person called Zi Chen who went on a killing spree in the city. In the end, he escaped from the encirclement of a group of 7th rank martial artists. I don't know if the person you're looking for is Zi Chen. What? The smile on Monk's face froze. He stared at the third class and said, what happened? Tell me in detail. The third class roughly explained what happened that year. In the end, he said, it's been 200 years. Everyone says he's dead. Bullsh *T. How can he be dead? Monk said unhappily. Why can he be dead? A cold voice sounded. He won't die even if you die. Dissatisfied, the monk turned around and realized that many people were approaching them from all directions. Behind these people, there was another group of people. Among these people, the weakest were rank 4, and some were rank 5. In the distance, there was the aura of a rank 6 surging. The monk was a little dumbfounded. What did that mean? Beside him, the expressions of the others also changed. After rank 6, a rank 7 aura appeared. Damn it, what the hell is going on? The monk was infuriated, but he didn't show it on his face. He smiled and said, so many people, are you here to welcome us? He cupped his fists and said, thank you, but you don't have to be so formal. At the front of the crowd, rank 4s and rank 5s retreated. Rank 7 stepped forward while rank 6 followed behind, surrounding all of them. One of the rank 7 looked at the monk and said, are you Zi Chen's friend? The third pin expert ran away in fear. The monk said innocently, Zi Chen? Who is he? Do I know him? Li Ari wanted to laugh, but he didn't dare to. You're quite good at acting. The 7th stage expert glanced at the monk sarcastically. Who is this Zi Chen you're talking about? Does he have a grudge against you? Don't worry, since you've come to welcome me like this, we're friends. As long as I see him, I'll definitely help you get rid of him. The monk patted his chest and said, yes, your Lord Buddha's promise is absolute. The seventh stage expert frowned. His gaze moved away from the talkative bald man and fell on the others. Then he said coldly, I thought since you were Zichen's friends, you should have some tricks up your sleeves. Now it seems that's all there is to it. Yes, arrest them all. Isn't it against the rules to arrest people here for no reason? At this moment, yet another voice rang out. A god race being who was clad in battle armor had arrived at this place. Tai Jian, how dare you come here? Do you think you've had too good of a life these past few years? The seventh stage expert who spoke earlier looked at Tai Jian sarcastically. Dora, you should have some shame if you live in this world, right? Back then, your excuse for attacking Zichen was that Zichen killed people first, so you were punishing evil. But now, they've just come to this world. What right do you have to arrest them? Tai Jian looked at the seventh stage expert named Dora. Do you think there are no rules in this city in your eyes? The monk and the others did not know the details of that year, but this seventh stage expert of the Protoss came here to protect them. So he immediately said, Sir, you're right. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. We didn't do anything wrong. Why do you want to attack us? Dora ignored the talkative monk. Instead, he stared at Tai Jian and said, Our business is none of your business. If you continue to meddle in other people's business, Tai Jian faction will definitely be completely destroyed. The monk immediately said, We'll join Tai Jian faction for free. We don't want any reward. We'll work hard for the growth of Tai Jian faction. Tai Jian frowned. Wasn't this guy talking too much? They've joined Tai Jian, so they're members of Tai Jian now. Tai Jian looked at Dora and said, We must take these people away. Dora said coldly, If you want to stop us, Tai Jian faction will definitely be destroyed. Tai Jian said coldly, I won't stop you, but how can you ignore the rules of the city? The other party snorted and said, Take them all away. Tai Jian did not stop them, but said sarcastically, Looks like you're really scared by Zichen. Why would we be afraid of a dead man? If we're not afraid, why would we attack his friends? The monk was helpless. He did not expect to become a prisoner as soon as he arrived here. He did not resist and could only leave with these people. Sir Tai Jian, quickly find Zichen to save us. Tyrant shouted before he left. He's long dead. A seventh stage expert said coldly. Pasha looked away and looked at the queen and below. Both parties communicated quickly with their divine thoughts. After that, Pasha left and went to find Zichen. Seeing Pasha, Zichen was surprised and asked, Why are you here? Pasha said with a serious expression, I sensed the queen ant's aura. Zichen said with a smile, You're the queen ant's incarnation. Is there a problem with sensing it? Pasha said, It's the second queen ant. What? Zichen heard and his expression changed instantly. He knew very well what the second queen ant meant. The queen ant was left on the first level under the monk's control. It's only been 200 years and the monk has already brought the queen ant here. The thing on the first level had reached this level. It was obvious that the monk had come. Although he did not know why he was so fast, Zichen knew very well what the monk and the others would face once they arrived in the city. He looked at Pasha and said, Are you guys ready? Pasha nodded. Let's go back. Zichen transmitted his voice to the others who were still in seclusion. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Chapter 31:15. Su Mengyao opened her eyes and a hazy light flashed in her eyes. She stood up and walked out of the room. She heard Zichen's voice transmission and knew that monk had come to this world. When she walked out of the room, Lin Shui and the others had all appeared. Everyone had expected the arrival of monk and the others, so they didn't panic. They were just a little surprised that monk would come at this time. Zichen went to the queen ant and kept all the dark heavenly ants and the contribution token. Fina came after hearing the news and asked Zichen what happened. Zichen told her what happened. Fina looked at him apologetically and said, Because of the rules, I'm afraid I can't help you. Zichen said with a smile, No need, I have a way. He brought all the dark heavenly ants and prepared to return to the city. Fina said again, "When you return, you'd better take a detour because your enemy left something in front of you. You can see everything around you." Zichen nodded and thanked her. After Potian returned, he kept everyone and teleported. The long journey was nothing for Zichen, who could teleport with the help of the world force. After deliberately taking a detour, Zichen handed the matter of teleportation to his doppelganger. He discussed with Su Mengyaro and the others what to do next. Su Mengyaro said, "The best result is that they didn't recognize Monk and they're safe. However, the possibility of this is not high. They'll either be captured or killed. The former is more likely." Everyone nodded. If they killed Monk and the others, it was completely unnecessary because they were only 4th grade experts. If they were captured, they could use them to threaten Zichen. Who cares? We have the dark heavenly ants. We'll kill our way into the city and slaughter all the natives. Demon Ape said loudly. The others laughed. If there was no other way, they would have to fight. But the problem was, how should they fight? Zichen looked at everyone and said, "If you can outsmart them, it's best not to fight." Everyone looked at Zichen. Zichen said, "The grand formation in the city is a threat to Potian. If we enter the city to fight, it will be extremely disadvantageous for us. If one were to attack the city from the outside, it would take a very long time to break through the formation. This is enough time to threaten us. If that was the case, it would be troublesome." Su Mengyaro looked at Zichen and asked, "How did you know that the monk was coming?" "That's what Paige said." "In that case, Paji can sense the existence of the queen ant." Su Mengyaro looked at Paji. Paji nodded. "I can feel it." Su Mengyaro pondered for a moment before saying, "How about this? You and Pasha enter the city first and find a way to find the monks. If they haven't been caught, you can just take them and leave. If you're caught, think of a way to rescue them. If you can't rescue them silently, use a diversion tactic to lure all the experts out of the city. Then, you can make a move. As for the method to lure the experts, it's naturally to let the dark heavenly ant show up." Zichen said, "I can leave a golden body behind." There was still some distance to go. This distance was enough for them to discuss the details of the rescue. Su Mengyaro said, "According to Paji's perception, the monks have only been here for a few hours. Even if they have caught the monks, they must be discussing how to deal with them. They won't expect us to come. This is an opportunity to catch them off guard." Zichen nodded in agreement. The final details were completely agreed upon. After teleporting again and again, they finally approached the city. Then, Zichen and Paji walked out. No one had seen Paji before, so she didn't have to deliberately change her appearance. Zichen's figure flickered and turned into a 4th-class Divine Clan member. He walked toward the city with Paji. Along the way, they saw some Divine Clan members who had also returned from battle. They were talking and laughing and seemed to be very satisfied with the current situation. At the same time, some people walked out of the city and discussed some things that had just happened. Zichen released his spiritual thoughts and listened to the discussions. Soon, he found some useful clues. Sure enough, they were caught. These shameless people. Among the discussions, there were discussions about him. Everyone thought that since he hadn't disappeared for more than 200 years, he must be dead. Even so, those forces were still worried and directly captured the monks. Entering the city again and seeing the bustling scene, Zichen felt a little emotional. If it weren't for Potian, it would have been difficult for him to leave. After entering the city and entering the crowd, Zichen looked at Paji. "Follow me." Paji led Zichen to the east of the city. The sun rose in the east and the golden sunlight shone down. The core of the exchange castle was dyed golden. Zichen's gaze moved away from the exchange castle. He had obtained countless contribution points this time. If there was a chance, he would definitely exchange them again. This was what they had discussed in advance before coming. After all, after hundreds of years of consumption and potions devouring, Zichen's cultivation resources were getting fewer and fewer. Because they couldn't fly in the city, the two took almost 4 hours. During this time, they passed through countless streets and finally arrived at their destination. Pa Ji looked at the huge house in front of them and said, "They are here." Zichen nodded and released his spiritual thoughts. This place didn't block his spiritual thoughts. Soon, he saw everything in the house. During this time, he sensed the breath of the monks. When his spiritual thoughts came to a hall, he felt a strong threat. There should be a rank 7 inside. His spiritual thoughts avoided this place in advance and extended to other places. Zichen soon found another building. Outside the building, there were 2 rank 6 and several rank 5. They seemed to be guarding something. When Zichen probed further, he sensed the monk's aura. Found them. Zichen's eyes flashed with a touch of surprise. Since he had found them, the next step was to think of a way to save them. The dangerous breath he sensed earlier must have come from those rank 7. Now that they were gathered, they should be discussing how to deal with the monks. The best way was to not alert the enemy. Otherwise, it would be very dangerous. After thinking about it, Zichen finally came up with a plan. However, it required a risk. After going around this place and coming to a deserted alley, Zichen released his spiritual thoughts. After confirming that there were no abnormalities and even using the yin-yang eye, he immediately entered the house. At the same time, Shadowless went straight to those rank 7 who were in a discussion. He needed to see what they looked like and then report back to Zichen. Chapter 31:16. Back then, Zichen had seen many rank 7 martial artists, but he couldn't be sure who among them were involved. Therefore, even if he transformed, he still needed Shadowless to investigate. When Shadowless moved forward, Zichen had already transformed into an aboriginal and walked forward. During this time, he deliberately avoided meeting other aboriginals because he transformed randomly without any basis. After a while, Shadowless appeared in front of Zichen and told him the face of a person. Zichen remembered the person, so his figure flashed and transformed into the person's appearance. After transforming into a rank 7, Zichen went straight to the place where the monk was locked up. During this time, Shadowless took the lead to check on the monk and the others. "They're all here." Shadowless' voice sounded. Zichen walked to the outside of the place where the monk and the others were locked up and saw the guards. After seeing Zichen as a rank 7, they were surprised and saluted Zichen one after another. Zichen nodded indifferently. He didn't stop and continued walking forward. "Sir," the rank 6 martial artist followed. Zichen waved his hand and said, "Open this place. You all wait outside. I have something to ask." "Yes." The rank 6 martial artist didn't notice anything unusual. With a flash of light in his hand, he opened the restriction here and Zichen walked in. The door behind him closed again and Zichen walked forward. "You guys are really shameless. You can't beat Zichen, so you come looking for trouble with us. You know, we're not familiar with Zichen. We're just ordinary partners. Maybe I'll kill him when the time comes. It's really unnecessary for you to catch us." As soon as Zichen came in, he heard the monk's words and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At first, he wanted to call Pa Ji out to see if they were real people. Now that he heard the monk's words, it was completely unnecessary. The others weren't as shameless as the monk. They all stared coldly at Zichen. Zichen released his spiritual thoughts and said, "Don't talk and don't resist." He used his own voice. These people's expressions were slightly stunned, somewhat in disbelief. The monk seemed to want to say something, but Zichen coldly glanced at him and angrily transmitted his voice to him. "Shut up, you damn baldy. I'll deal with you later. Let's see who kills who first." Shua. The next moment, Zichen opened the world and took everyone in. During this time, nothing unexpected happened. Everything went smoothly. Of course, this was mainly because the natives did not think that Zichen would appear at this time. After all, he had disappeared for hundreds of years. "Zichen is dead." Zichen, who had become a rank 7, said. The only monk who was not put away said, "It's good that we're dead. Let us go quickly. We're your allies." Obviously, this guy was extremely cooperative. However, this might also be his true thoughts. "Although we're certain that he's dead, have you ever discussed how to meet him?" Zichen asked again, deliberately making his voice loud. At the same time, rays of light flew out and turned into the appearance of these people. They did not emit any aura of cultivation, as if they had been sealed. Meet him? We're not familiar with him. Of course, we won't meet him. However, if I see him, I'll definitely bump into his head. This damn guy, how dare he harm Lord Zeng? The monk said again. Humph. Chen snorted coldly, indicating that this guy should leave. The light flashed again. The real monk left and a fake monk appeared. The fake monk said to Chen, "Don't go. Let us go. We're really not familiar with Chen." Chen did not respond. After leaving the room, he said to the two rank 6, "Watch this place." The rank 6 nodded and continued to add restrictions. At this moment, the fake monk's voice was still ringing. However, after the restrictions were added again, the voice had disappeared. This was obviously isolated. Chen turned into a rank 7 and turned to leave. When he reached a deserted place, he changed his appearance again and left quietly. Just you guys. After leaving successfully, Chen returned to the world and asked the monk. There's also Kang Mo. However, he was brought to the Kang family. The monk asked in surprise, "Didn't you disappear for more than 200 years? How did you appear so soon?" Chen did not explain for the monk. Now, he had to find a way to save Kang Mo. What's the Kang family's attitude towards Kang Mo? Chen asked. Their attitude is naturally unfriendly. However, they won't make things too difficult for him, right? The monk said after thinking about it. After all, Kang Mo was the pureblood of the Kang family. Logically, there should not be any problems. However, Chen was still somewhat worried. However, the Kang family was different from this place. If he wanted to sneak in, it would be much more difficult. Moreover, he did not know when the other party would find out about everything he did earlier. Chen decided to go to the Kang family first. It was not difficult to find out the location of this family. When he arrived outside the Kang family, Chen found that the place was heavily guarded. During this time, he extended his spiritual senses and did not find Kang Mo. After hesitating for a while, Chen decided to go to the trading place first. This time, only Kang Mo was in the hands of the other party. Once he appeared, the Kang family would be faced with two choices. One was to protect Kang Mo and be on good terms with him. The other was to use Kang Mo to threaten him. Both sides would completely fall out. As for what the Kang family would choose, Chen had no confidence in his heart. At this time, the monk told him what happened here. During this time, a person called Tai Jian wanted to protect him but failed. Chen's heart suddenly moved. He decided to go find Tai Jian first. Tai Jian was among the forces. During this period of time, Tai Jian's forces were very miserable. Because of what happened today, some people could not hold on and chose to leave. Tai Jian leaned back on the chair and frowned, thinking about what happened today. He did not believe that Chen died just like that. Although the natives were very sure, they were still worried in their hearts. Otherwise, they would not have captured the monk and the others. Just as he was hesitating whether he should do something or not, he suddenly heard a voice transmission. He was slightly startled and turned his head in confusion. When this voice rang out again, his eyes flashed with a brilliant light, appearing to be in disbelief. He walked out of the room and walked outside. He walked into a restaurant and ordered a jug of wine and 2 dishes. In another place, Chen and Pa Ji sat together. Pa Ji looked curiously at the food on the plate. She had never seen or eaten it before. "You actually came back?" Tai Jian transmitted his voice, looking very incredulous. "This time, I came here to ask for a favor." Chen transmitted his voice. The two did not sit together. This was Tai Jian's idea. From this, Chen could see his situation. "You want me to help you save your friends? I'm afraid I can't do that." Tai Jian drank a cup of wine. Chapter 31:17. Hearing Chen's words, Tai Jian was very surprised and turned his head in astonishment. "I haven't rescued Kang Mo yet. If there's a chance later, I hope you can help," Chen said through voice transmission. "If there's a chance, I'll definitely help. However, there shouldn't be such a chance, right?" Tai Jian said. "I'll create a chance later. I have another question. Sir, Are there any restrictions on exchanging resources in the core place? Zichen asked again. Not really. Although they're suppressing my Taijian force, they won't make things difficult for me, a rank 7, Taijian continued. Alright, I'll have to trouble you to guard the vicinity of Kang family. I'll go to the core trading place. Zichen's purpose of going to the core trading place was to exchange for cultivation resources. However, during this period, he needed to create a panic. He and Pa Ji walked to the core trading place. At this moment, Pa Ji informed the queen, and outside the city, a black line appeared. The black line was approaching the city. There were Protoss and natives going in and out of the city gate. Soon, someone noticed something unusual and looked ahead. When they saw the black line at the end of their sight, their faces changed and they retreated into the city. Exclamations could be heard from the city. Then, it rose and fell. The monsters are attacking the city. The dark heavenly ants have appeared outside the city. Countless dark heavenly ants have arrived outside the city. In a short while, the exclamations spread throughout the city. Hence, all the Protoss and natives rushed to the top of the city wall to see what was going on. At the same time, in the mansion, the rank 7 who were discussing how to deal with the monk and the rest were shocked when they heard the news. Let's go and see. They left the mansion and flew to the top of the city wall. When they arrived at the top of the city wall, they saw the black mass of dark heavenly ants and Zichen, who was standing in front of the dark heavenly ants. He's here so soon. A rank 7 was stunned and said, did he get the news? There's been no news for hundreds of years. How could he appear at this time? Could it be a coincidence? The group of rank 7s clearly could not figure out Zichen's intentions. At that moment, more people came to the top of the city wall. When they saw the dark heavenly ants in the distance, they gasped. Zichen, who was at the core trading area, quickly heard of this news. The existences who were exchanging for opportunities rushed out one after another. Clearly, they all wanted to see what was going on. For most of the Protoss in the city, the return of Zichen was an extremely good thing because he could make the natives tremble in fear. While the crowd was running away, Zichen transformed into Iron Sword and walked towards the core area. There were natives guarding the place in secret, but they would definitely not stop a rank 7. Moreover, Taijian was also a frequent visitor here all these years, so no one paid any attention to him. Entering the core area again, it was still the same as before. There were many opportunities, but the ancient ancestral tablet had disappeared. Zichen came to the place where he could exchange for the King of God's soul essences. He immediately pressed his hand on the barrier. With a thought, the King of God's soul essences flowed towards Zichen continuously. At the same time, Zichen's spiritual thoughts extended quickly, looking for some high-quality armor. For the past 200 years, he had almost endless contribution points. Hence, he could exchange for anything he wanted. Li Ari and the rest were new here, so they needed protective armor. Zichen was exchanging here, and no one noticed him. Iron Sword concealed his aura, changed his appearance, and guarded outside the Kang family, watching every move of the Kang family. After hearing the arrival of the Dark Heavenly Ant Army, the Kang family was in an uproar. As everyone knew, the only person who could control the Dark Heavenly Ants in this world was Zichen. In other words, Zichen was not dead. When he left back then, he was a rank 4. Now that 200 years had passed, what realm was he in? While the Kang family was in an uproar, they were also panicking. The rank 7s of the Kang family flew towards the city wall. Before that, they needed to know the purpose of Zichen's return. Was he here to save people? However, they had just caught him today. How could they know so quickly? Everyone, I'm back. When they reached the city wall, Zichen's voice came through the city-guarding formation. Do you still remember what I said when I left back then? Zichen could also see these people through the transparent light shield. He smiled coldly and said, "Thank you for your warm hospitality. Today, I'm going to destroy this city." When everyone heard what Zichen said, they all heaved a sigh of relief. Obviously, he did not know that his friends had come and were caught by him. All of this was really a coincidence. Zichen did not talk nonsense. He directly waved his hand to signal the dark heavenly ants to charge forward and start attacking the city-guarding formation. Vroom. The city-guarding formation was attacked and began to tremble. Beams of strong light fell from above, heading towards these dark heavenly ants. In the blink of an eye, a large number of dark heavenly ants died. Chen was a little surprised that the city-guarding formation could still counterattack. Hence, he waved his hand again. The dark heavenly ants' bodies shone brightly and went underground directly. They began to attack the city-guarding formation from underground. At that moment, the formation lost its target and the strong light gradually disappeared. Seeing that Chen attacked the formation as soon as he arrived, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that he really did not know that his friends had been caught. Chen, your friends are in my hands. If you don't care about their lives, just attack directly. A cold voice came from above the city wall. Friends? What friends? Chen was stunned when he heard it. It seems that you still don't know? Your friends from the lower levels have already arrived. Unfortunately, they've arrived today. A rank 7s laughed proudly. One of them is bald. I heard that he's the person in charge below you. Do you think I'll believe that? Chen laughed sarcastically. It's up to you to believe it or not. They've already fallen into my hands. If you know what's good for you, surrender quickly. Otherwise, they'll die in front of you. The rank 7s turned around and said to a rank 6, go and bring those people here. A rank 6 responded and stepped back. Chen's expression gradually turned cold. Initially, I wanted to teach you all a lesson. Now, it seems that I must destroy all of you. The rank 7s laughed. It's too early to say this now. When your friends appear, I think you'll know what to do. Chen said, when I was at the lower levels, the Parry family used my friends to threaten me. You should know the consequences. Humph. Then we'll wait and see. Chapter 31:18. Chen walked out of the core trading area. This time, there were no accidents. He got what he wanted. Countless contribution points were exchanged for countless resources. It took a long time just to collect those resources. Fortunately, he made it in time. Walking out of the core trading area, Chen's appearance changed again. He rushed in the direction of the Kang family. At the same time, he quickly communicated with the golden body outside the city. After learning that those people went to bring the monk and the others, Chen had an idea in his mind. He met up with Iron Sword outside the Kang family. During the meeting, he asked, did anyone leave? Iron Sword said, the Kang family's rank 7s have all left. What about Kang Mo? Still inside. Chen nodded. A plan came to his mind. I hope you can save me when I'm in danger. Before Iron Sword agreed, Chen's appearance changed again. After that, he walked directly to the Kang family. The ancestor ordered me to bring Kang Mo to the city wall immediately. He flew directly to the Kang family without knocking on the door. He turned into a rank 6. Although it was a strange face, everyone knew that Chen was outside, so no one cared. After hearing Chen's words, the people of the Kang family walked out one after another. They looked at the strange Chen with a surprised expression. The others have already gone. We have to hurry, Chen said again. Follow me. A rank 6 led Chen to the place where Kang Mo lived. During this time, Chen released his spiritual thoughts and quickly sensed Kang Mo's location. Kang Mo's strength was not sealed, but there were rank 6 guarding outside his residence. Obviously, it was impossible for him to escape. Who are you? The rank 6 guarding Kang Mo rushed at Chen who was coming. Is it important? Chen stared at him. I've never seen you before. The rank 6 face was obviously hostile. I won't hand him over to you. Chen said unhappily, do we need to go to the city wall to confirm our identities? If you think you're strong enough, you should bring Kang Mo to the city wall yourself. I believe you'll have the courage to fight Chen then. With that, Chen turned around and left. I've already delivered the message. If you delay, it will cause great losses to the various forces. You will have to bear the consequences yourselves. This rank 6, who was supposed to be guarding Kang Mo but was actually monitoring him, had an extremely ugly expression on his face. He was very clear about Zi Chen's battle record. More than 200 years ago, he could already kill a rank 6. What more now? At this moment, the door opened and Kang Mo walked out. Zi Chen, who was about to leave, stopped. Naturally, he couldn't really leave. He turned around and said to Kang Mo, "You're Kang Mo. Would you like to come with me?" Kang Mo glanced at that rank 6, then looked at Zi Chen. Zi Chen said. Kang Mo's expression changed slightly. Then, he glanced at the rank 6 again, then walked toward Zi Chen. "All right, I'll go with you," Kang Mo said. "I'll go with you," the rank 6 from earlier said. Kang Mo turned around, looked at this rank 6, and said, "Great-grandfather, don't worry. I'll be fine." That rank 6 who brought Zi Chen here had already left. Now that Zi Chen was here, danger could happen at any time. No one paid attention to this place. When Zi Chen heard Kang Mo's words, he seemed very surprised. He deliberately sized up this rank 6. He guessed this rank 6 identity. "Let's go." Kang Mo turned around, as if he wanted to explain to Zi Chen. Zi Chen grabbed Kang Mo and flew into the distance. That rank 6 watched Kang Mo leave. His expression changed. In the end, he let out a low sigh and said nothing. At this moment, his heart could not calm down for a long time. Because he also guessed the identity of the person who left. He was very shocked. Zi Chen took Kang Mo and left the Kang family mansion. Then, they walked in the direction outside the city. When no one noticed, Zi Chen manifested 2 doppelgangers, which turned into his and Kang Mo's appearances. The real him changed his appearance again. He put Kang Mo away and went to see Iron Sword, who was on guard at the side. Everything went well. He nodded at Iron Sword and said, "What are your plans next?" Iron Sword asked. "I still don't have the confidence to slaughter all of them, so I don't plan to do anything this time. However, before I leave, I have to teach them a lesson." Everyone had been rescued. This made Zi Chen breathe a sigh of relief. He did not dare to do anything in this city because of the defender formation. However, this matter could not be let go just like that. "What are you planning to do?" "I plan to go inside again." Zi Chen pointed at the trading castle floating in the air. As he spoke, Zi Chen took out a large amount of God King's soul essence. He placed it in a divine ring and handed it to Iron Sword. These resources can be considered as compensation for the oppression of Iron Sword all these years. "Sir, please accept them." Iron Sword shook his head and said, "We can't accept these resources. Sir, you don't want them, but others do." Zi Chen said again. Iron Sword once again refused. Through this matter, Iron Sword's future situation will definitely be much better. It's not good to give them opportunities now. "We'll wait for your return." Iron Sword insisted on not accepting, so Zi Chen could only nod. While the two sides were still fighting outside, Zi Chen came to the trading ground again. However, this time, his purpose was not to trade, but to snatch resources. "What do you want?" A native who was looking at the shop looked at Zi Chen and said indifferently, "I'll go in and take a look." Zi Chen said and walked in. That native frowned. There was obvious dissatisfaction in his eyes. After entering the shop, Zi Chen's lips curled into a smile. His eyes flashed coldly. A sharp light appeared and swept towards the native at the side. After a while, Zi Chen walked out. The goods in the shop had all disappeared. The native was lying in a pool of blood. Next, Zi Chen wandered around the various shops until he had robbed all of the shops in the area. After that, he left the trading ground. Heaven Splitter appeared in the form of a bow. The energy of heaven and earth surged wildly. Zi Chen drew his bow and shot an arrow. Wang! The void trembled. The arrow shot into the sky and easily tore open the sky. A passage appeared. The people in the city noticed this. They looked up and saw a hole in the city's barrier. A person walked towards the hole with a bow in his hand. Zi Chen walked into the passageway, and his figure immediately disappeared. Exclamations sounded in the city. How similar was this scene from 200 years ago? The person who just disappeared is Zi Chen. Isn't Zi Chen outside the city? Why is he in the city? Following the cries of surprise, this news immediately spread in all directions. Zichen walked into the passage and arrived outside the city. His figure flashed and disappeared from the light barrier. Chapter 31:19. When Zichen arrived at the outside world, the golden body was still having a war of words with those rank 7s. Both sides were exchanging blows, neither giving way to the other. Zichen's figure flashed and appeared in front of the doppelganger. Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw Zichen. "We can go now." Zichen looked at everyone and smiled in a relaxed manner. On the city wall, when the others saw that there were two Zichen on the scene, they immediately exclaimed in surprise. The Zichen who was having a war of words with them earlier disappeared in a flash, leaving behind the Zichen who appeared later. This Zichen turned around and said to the front, "Today's incident is a lesson to all of you. The next time I come, it will be the time of your family's annihilation." As his voice fell, the monk and the others who were standing in the city disappeared. Seeing this, those rank 7's faces changed drastically. Obviously, these people were fake. Zichen's sudden arrival was not a coincidence. He came deliberately. The dark heavenly ants that had sneaked into the ground appeared continuously and were kept into Zichen's world. Damn it! Some rank 7's cursed angrily. Obviously, they were careless. However, what they could not understand was, how did Zichen know that these people were captured? Could it be that Iron Sword's people tipped him off? That did not seem to be possible, because they did not know where Zichen was, so how could Tai Jian know? At this moment, Zichen waved his hand, indicating for everyone to leave. "You want to leave just like that?" At this moment, a cold voice was heard, "Kang Mo is still in our hands. Don't you care about his life?" Zichen turned around and smiled. His smile was full of sarcasm. These rank 7's understood the chill in his smile and said angrily, "Don't let him escape." The next moment, some rank 7's flew out and attacked Zichen. Looking at these rank 7's, Zichen's eyes flashed coldly. "Are you confident?" he asked Potian telepathically. "Of course." Heaven Breaker smiled. "This isn't a city." With the longbow in hand, Zichen pulled the bowstring. The energy of heaven and earth in all directions converged towards the longbow in a frenzy. A powerful aura filled the world. Sensing this aura, those rank 7's expressions changed drastically. Whoosh! The longbow was drawn to a full moon, and Zichen released the arrow. The energy arrow cut through the air, heading straight for a rank 7. This rank 7's expression changed drastically. He put up a defense, and a set of armor automatically appeared on his body. When the arrow arrived, the defense shattered, and the armor was penetrated. Wang! The arrow that pierced through the air disappeared. That rank 7 who was charging forward froze, falling toward the ground. A rank 7 dead. At the same time, Zichen drew his bow again and shot another arrow. The sound of something breaking through the air was heard again. The second rank 7 was killed. At this moment, the longbow that Sky Splitter had transformed into displayed extremely powerful killing power. 2 arrows killed 2 rank 7's. This shocked the other rank 7's and they subconsciously stopped. Don't stop, just charge over. Once you get close, his bow and arrow will lose its effect. A rank 7 shouted loudly, "You're too slow. Get out of the way, I'll do it myself. Remember, 1,000 crystals per arrow." At the same time, Sky Splitter's voice sounded in Zichen's mind. Only then did Zichen remember that Sky Splitter could fight on his own. Thus, he let go of his hand and pulled the longbow itself. The energy of heaven and earth rapidly surged into the longbow, turning into an energy arrow. Wang! The arrow flew out, heading straight for the rank 7's who were charging forward. Wang! Immediately after, a second arrow flew out, almost following the first arrow. At the same time, several more arrows flew out. Each arrow represented 1,000 godly king soul essences. If it was in the past, Zichen would definitely be heartbroken. But now, he had countless godly king soul essences on him, so he naturally couldn't bear to part with them. As the arrows flew out, they were all killed. None of the rank 7's could block this arrow. In the blink of an eye, these rank 7's who were charging forward were all dead. Heaven and earth were silent. No sound could be heard anymore. Those people on the city wall looked outside through the light shield, as if they were petrified. More than 10 rank 7s died just like that. Even though they saw it with their own eyes, they still couldn't believe it. Some people came to their senses and used special ocular techniques one after another. They felt that all of this might be the same as last time, just an illusion. But they were disappointed. This was something that really happened, not an illusion. Dead. All of them were dead. Iron Sword also appeared on the city wall. Looking at those rank 7's corpses on the ground, his face was full of shock. Also appearing on the city wall was Saint Rentoin, who had been suppressed all this time. Apart from shock, he was also full of excitement. Compared to the time when he only brought Zi Chen to the core trading ground once, his gains from now on would be unimaginably great. He didn't expose himself immediately because Zi Chen obviously had no intention of entering the city. He was collecting those rank 7 spoils of war and then obtained their contribution tokens. Zi Chen was surprised to find that the contribution tokens on them didn't disappear. Therefore, he summed up all the contributions together. It was a very large number. At the same time, he turned around and shouted at the city wall, "Brothers of Iron Sword have been wronged all these years. The contribution tokens here are compensation for everyone." He used energy to hold the token, and the token flew up to the city wall. At this moment, on the city wall, of course, there were other Iron Sword Force members standing there. They didn't move but looked at Iron Sword, looking very excited. Iron Sword nodded. Swoosh. Immediately, someone flew out and took the token. Then, he gave a fist salute to Zi Chen to thank him. "Let's go." Zi Chen nodded at the other party, then turned around and left. At this moment, apart from those native forces who lost rank 7s, the ones with the most complicated expressions were those who left Iron Sword Force early in the morning. As long as they persevered for one more day, they would see the light at the end of the tunnel. Unfortunately, the person who received the token walked into the city gate, flew up to the city wall again, and handed the contribution token to Iron Sword. Iron Sword said, "You guys go ahead and distribute it, including those who left today." Yes. Hearing Iron Sword's words, those people's expressions became more complicated. They all smiled bitterly. They would rather not have the contribution tokens this time. They wanted to continue joining Iron Sword Force. However, it was obvious that Iron Sword wouldn't let them join again. This time, Iron Sword had risen. Zi Chen left. He didn't enter the city because the formation in the city was very scary. Once it was activated, it would pose a great threat to him. However, he would return to this place when he reached rank 6. Monk and the others appeared one after another, looking very excited. In just one day, they had encountered a surprise and a shock. He released the other queen ant, and at the same time, released those dark heavenly ants. "How's the first level?" Zi Chen asked. "It's developing well. I've left a team of dark heavenly ants under Wei Li's control. I've also given Wei Li full authority there," Monk said. "What about Yang Wei and the others?" Chapter 31:20. The development of the lower level was going smoothly, and Yang Wei was not messing around. He was focused on developing his forces. Obviously, he wanted to leave with a group of people. The forces he left in the heavenly realm should no longer exist. However, Yang Wei's idea was obviously going to fail. The situation here was different, and he did not know where the next place was. Kuli's forces did not go back on their words. They were developing well in the lower level and got along well with the Protoss. They could even compete with the royal forces. "You can even kill a rank 7, why do we have to leave?" Monk asked in confusion as they continued to move forward. "The formation in the city can restrain me. Only death awaits us if we enter," Zi Chen replied. "Where are we going now?" Monk asked again. "To the depths." Since the matter here was over, Zi Chen brought everyone to teleport. When they arrived, Monk's eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at the creatures from another spacetime. "You were here all these years when you disappeared?" Zi Chen nodded. "How is this possible?" Monk could not believe it. At this moment, Fina came from afar. "Is it done?" "Yes," Zi Chen said. Fina chatted briefly with Zi Chen, then left, leaving Monk and the rest to ask questions. After Chen explained patiently, everyone was surprised and happy. "So, you're controlling another army?" Monk was surprised. "No control, just cooperation," Chen emphasized. Next, everyone began to cultivate. They cultivated endlessly until it was time for them to return. After Chen left, the city became bustling with activity. This time, more than a dozen rank 7 were killed. What about the next time? Would they completely destroy the indigenous forces? All the Protoss were looking forward to it. Iron Sword Force, which was suppressed by many forces, suddenly became the focus. Many Protoss requested to join them. Unfortunately, Iron Sword announced that they would no longer recruit outsiders from today onwards. The forces of the God Clan who had followed the natives to suppress Iron Sword came to visit. Their words were full of flattery and flattery. This was because everyone knew that the next time Chen returned, it would be time to destroy the native forces. Unlike the lower levels, the natives of this level no longer had a symbiotic relationship with the God race. Instead, they were pure enemies. That was because there was a core trading ground here. As long as one had enough contribution points, they could exchange for countless resources. These resources were provided by the rules and were endless. There was no need for natives. For the Protoss, Chen belonged to the same faction, so naturally, they would not make things difficult for him. But it was different for the natives. The Aboriginals were already in chaos, and all kinds of feelings of panic were spreading. What followed next was naturally a battle. However, unlike the battles in the past, their opponents this time were the Dark Heavenly Ants. They were said to be endless and inexhaustible. Those were true monsters, and there was no end to them. The St. Lun family began to hold an emergency meeting. St. Lun, who had always been disliked, actually came, and his seat was relatively close to the front. The old ancestor of the St. Lun family looked at the flattered St. Rentoin and said kindly, "Yin tell us the truth. Did you make a deal with Chen?" St. Rentoin said with a blank face, "What?" The old man explained patiently, "At this point, the life and death of the family are in your hands. There's no need for you to hide it from everyone. If you have a deal with Chen, then we will support you fully." St. Rentoin was even more confused. He said in fear and trepidation, "Old ancestor, what are you trying to say? I have nothing to do with Chen. Back then, he almost killed me. Every time I'm with him, I'm very scared." "Really?" The old man stared into St. Rentoin's eyes. "How can it be fake?" "If you don't believe me, you can ask my father," said St. Rentoin. The old man was furious when he thought of that drunkard. "All right, you can leave now." The old man waved his hand and said, "Huh." St. Rentoin was stunned. "Get out. Is this a place where you can sit?" The old man narrowed his eyes, and a cold glint shot out from his eyes. St. Rentoin scrambled away with a frightened look on his face. "What a piece of trash. You're just like your father. Serves you right that you can't even drink the cheapest wine." A look of disgust flashed in the old man's eyes. Then he looked at the others and said, "All right, it's time to discuss how to deal with Chen." The same thing was happening in other families. When the Kang family learned that Kang Mo had been taken away, their faces immediately turned ugly. Then they went to find the rank 6 who was guarding Kang Mo. At this moment, the first thing they thought of was how to establish a relationship with Chen. If there was no relationship, then they would discuss how to start a war. The days of the Iron Sword faction instantly became better. All the native factions spread the news that anyone who belonged to the Iron Sword faction could use the Awakening Altar for free. The price of exchanging resources was also halved. When the news came out, many Protoss were envious. Unfortunately, the Iron Sword faction no longer recruited outsiders. At the same time, the Iron Sword faction sent out an order that no one in the faction was allowed to exchange resources or awaken their powers. He knew very well how much affection he had with Chen. He could not let it be exhausted just because of some small gains. His order was very decisive. Anyone who disobeyed would be expelled from the Iron Sword faction immediately. Chen had no idea what happened in the city. After returning, he went into seclusion. Pa Ji was still on the battlefield, watching the battle below in boredom. However, compared to before, there was one more Ant Queen. Tyrant and the others all went into seclusion. Before long, they all broke through to the rank 5. Heavenbreaker swallowed a large amount of the God King's soul essence, then found a place to slowly refine it. This world was peaceful. However, everyone knew that this peace was only temporary. Once Zichen broke through, this world would once again become turbulent. As for what this world would become in the future, no one knew. Taking advantage of the fact that Zichen had yet to arrive, the native factions in the city continued to expand their influence. They gave them abundant resources and recruited armies. However, it was useless. All the Protoss deliberately kept a distance from them. This time, their former allies were indifferent to the olive branches they threw at them. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, another 200 years passed. Zichen had been in this world for over 400 years. Under the continuous refining of the God King's soul essence, he broke through to the next realm. A strong aura surged from his body. The light of yin and yang shone from the surface of his body. He broke through to the rank 6 king realm. This realm was equivalent to the rank 6 king realm in the divine world. He was only 3 levels away from the top rank 9 king realm. He was not too far away from the divine realm. Of course, whether he could reach the divine realm was another matter. Once he reached the rank 6 king realm, he would have the strength to fight against a rank 7 king realm, even if there was a formation in the city. At the same time, Zichen also planned to go back and see how the faction he founded was doing. Chapter 31-21. Zichen had the thought of going back, but he couldn't go alone. The others were still in seclusion. Zichen had to wait for everyone to break through before they could leave together. He didn't want to waste the time he was waiting. He could go and deal with the Aborigines first. He went to Paji and told her his idea. The Queen Ant naturally didn't have any objections. It was the same wherever they went to fight. After a few hundred years of development, the number of dark heavenly ants had increased by more than 10 times. Their overall realm had also increased significantly. The Queen Ant didn't go with him. Paji followed Zichen. Then, Zichen led 1/3 of the dark heavenly ants and headed toward the city. When they left the core area and were a few 100,000 miles away from the city, the dark heavenly ants all appeared. They fought as they approached the city. 200 years passed in the blink of an eye. The Aborigines never let down their guard. When the dark heavenly ants appeared a few 100,000 miles away, they were the first to receive the news. The quiet city immediately became chaotic. All the Aborigines began to gather and discuss how to deal with Zichen. The God clan in the city was silent. They decided not to interfere in the matter no matter what, even if the Aborigines gave them a great opportunity. The people of Iron Sword Force who had stayed in the city for more than 200 years heaved a sigh of relief. In the past 200 years, they didn't go out to fight because of Iron Sword's order. They didn't want to get involved in karma. They stayed in the city all the time. Iron Sword only interacted with some god clan and never had anything to do with the Aborigines. The Aborigines meeting this time was naturally to discuss how to deal with Zichen. However, the Kang clan's attitude seemed to be a little evasive. They weren't as proactive as before. The old man from St. Lun clan looked at the rank 7 of the Kang clan and said, "I know that the Kang clan and Zichen have some ties. However, that doesn't guarantee that the Kang clan can be completely preserved. Even if the Kang clan still exists, can you guarantee that it's the Kang clan that you control?" The Aborigines discussed for a long time. When the dark heavenly ants advanced 100,000 miles, the Aborigines took the initiative to leave the city. They formed an army and found the dark heavenly ants. The first large-scale war broke out. What made Zichen rejoice was that there was no sign of the god race in this war. As expected, the Aborigines suffered heavy losses in this battle. The dark heavenly ant didn't stop moving forward. During this period of time, battles broke out one after another. In every battle, the Aborigines suffered great losses. The dark heavenly ants also suffered casualties. However, in front of the huge number of dark heavenly ants, these losses were nothing. The dark heavenly ant advanced on the ground while Zichen and Pa Ji advanced in the air. Pa Ji looked ahead and said, "They're here again." Chen nodded. His figure flashed as he charged forward. All the natives below grade 5 were dealt with by the dark heavenly ants. However, the grade 6 and grade 7 natives were killed by Chen. Killing a rank 6 was extremely easy. He had done it when he was a rank 4. Now that he had reached rank 6, killing those of the same rank would be an instant kill. His Changdao was unsheathed. The saber gleamed as it swept past a rank 6 body. Fresh blood splattered. Rank 6 body fell to the ground. The two rank 6 following behind him were stunned. There was obvious fear in their eyes. However, they didn't retreat in fear. Instead, they rushed forward and displayed their strongest killing moves. Facing the two's strongest attacks, Chen only swung his saber. The saber gleam slashed and destroyed the attacks. The two of them died under his Changdao. In this battle, 3 rank 6 died. Swoosh. After the 3 rank 6 died, a rank 7 appeared in front of Chen. A rank 7 was the strongest in this world. It also represented the strongest combat power in this world. Chen looked at the incoming rank 7. The other party shouted loudly. He held a long sword and charged toward Chen. Chen held his saber and rushed forward. The saber and sword collided in front of him. Clanging sounds were heard. Wave after wave of powerful fluctuations spread from the sky. Below, the dark heavenly ants were fighting with the aborigines. In the sky, Chen was fighting a rank 7. Pa Ji stood in the distance. These dark heavenly ants were completely under her control. Buzz. Suddenly, the void trembled. The space in front of Pa Ji was distorted. A person walked out from it. When the other party appeared, he stabbed his spear toward Pa Ji. This was a rank 7. He attacked with all his might. Seeing the arrival of a rank 7, Pa Ji's expression didn't change. Although she already felt the terrifying pressure coming from all directions. The powerful spear arrived in front of her but was blocked by a ray of black light. To be precise, it was caught by a palm-emitting black light. In the void, another person appeared. His whole body was shining with black energy. He released a powerful aura. It was Chen's clone. It was once God's clone. Now, it was called Nether Clone. Nether Clone had also advanced to rank 6 along with his real body. He had been secretly protecting Pa Ji. Boom. The power of the underworld erupted, forming a powerful shockwave that sent the spear-wielding aboriginal flying. The other party looked at Nether Clone in shock. Obviously, he didn't expect Chen to have such a backup plan. Die. Nether Clone looked at the rank 7 coldly. The brilliance in his hand flashed again. A long sword appeared. This was the stone sword Chen took out from the abyss. It was unusually sharp. He rushed forward and attacked. Like a flash of black lightning, he swept past the rank 7 in front of him. In the eyes of the rank 7, the moment the black light flew over, his vision became extremely dark. Space seemed to be in a state of static. All the power in his body was suppressed. He couldn't control it. The next moment, the black light disappeared. His vision returned to normal. He slowly lowered his head. He saw a sword mark on his armor. Blood flowed from the mark. Then, his vision turned black again. He lost consciousness. When the Netherworld clone annihilated the rank 7s with one slash, Chen, who was on the other side, had already killed the rank 7s with his saber. Putting away his sword, Chen turned around. The Netherworld clone disappeared. They knew they would die. Why did they still come? Looking at Chen, who was walking back, Pa Ji asked, puzzled. Maybe they want to atone for their sins, Chen said. Atone for their sins? Pa Ji was puzzled. The battle below was still ongoing. The Aborigines only started to retreat when they suffered great losses and were about to be wiped out. Just like that, Chen used about a year's time to walk out of the city. During this period of time, the number of rank 6 and rank 7 powerhouses he had killed was as high as hundreds. As for those of other ranks, it was even more innumerable. It could be said that the Aborigines had suffered great losses in this 1 year. Looking at the majestic city in front, Chen didn't hesitate. He waved his hand and gave the order to attack. The dark heavenly ants hid underground and started to break the formation. The city protection formation rippled. I won't stop you. Enter the city. Chapter 31:22. On the city wall, there were many terrified aborigines. There were also some divine race members who were watching the show coldly with their arms crossed. After being oppressed for so many years, the divine race members did not have a good impression of the aborigines. They could not wait for them to die quickly. Zichen began to give the order to attack the formation. When the city was breached, it would be the time for the aborigines to be annihilated. The sudden voice caused everyone to be stunned. They were all very puzzled. The city defense formation was their last line of defense. Who was speaking? A beam of light appeared and turned into an elder. He stood in the air and looked at Zichen. I won't stop you. You can enter the city directly. Don't destroy the formation again. If the formation is broken, the rules of this world will change. Zichen looked at the other party with a puzzled face. You have come to the city twice. If I want to stop you, you won't be able to leave. This is a grudge between the two of you. It has nothing to do with me, the guardian of the formation, the elder standing in the air said again. There was an uproar on the city wall. Some of the aborigines guessed the elder's identity. Zichen was still puzzled. However, he vaguely understood that the other party did not seem to belong to the same camp as the aborigines. The elder continued, I can open a door for you to let all the dark heavenly ants in. However, you can't break the formation. Zichen looked at the elder and said, You are the formation spirit. You can say so. With a thought, Zichen made all the dark heavenly ants that had sneaked into the ground to attack appear again. Then, they returned to Pa Ji's side. You stay here. I'll go into the city. Zichen turned to look at Pa Ji and said. Be careful, Pa Ji reminded. Zichen walked into the city alone. He did not bring the dark heavenly ant with him. Wherever he passed, countless natives and God clan members stared at him. The aborigines' faces were filled with fear. However, the divine race members' eyes were filled with fanaticism. The elder who could control the formation came to Zichen's side and said, I witnessed what happened back then with my own eyes. I didn't stop them. When you left twice, I didn't stop you either. What do you plan to do next? You want to stop me now? Zichen said without turning his head. Of course not. I'm just curious about what you'll do. In this year of war, too many of the aborigines have died. Their overall strength has decreased by a lot. The old man said. But it's still a threat to the Protoss, isn't it? Zichen said calmly. Given the current situation of the Protoss, unless the natives are all dead, the threat will always exist. Even if the natives are all dead, the Protoss may not be able to regain their freedom. Zichen could understand what the old man meant. The natives had been suppressing the Protoss. Although it was wrong, the lack of unity and resistance of the Protoss was also the main reason. You can control the formation? Zichen asked again. Sure. The old man said. It seems that you are the rule of this city. Unfortunately, you haven't done anything all these years. Zichen walked forward. His target was the core of the exchange. If they're wrong, you should punish them. You shouldn't ignore them and cause them to continue making mistakes. The old man replied, the weak are prey to the strong. This is an eternal rule. I used to take action, but the Protoss who came here have their own camps. Gradually, they were not worthy of my action. There was disappointment on the old man's face. Obviously, he was completely disappointed with the Protoss who came here. Zichen believed that the Protoss had a reason, but it was definitely not the main reason. If the awakening altar in the lower level had not been destroyed, they would not have had the power to resist the natives. The Protoss would not have been so weak. As for later, the Protoss who had the power did not resist. Obviously, they saw that they were weak and did not resist. Over time, they had become accustomed to this kind of oppression. What do you plan to do with the natives? The old man asked again. I haven't thought about it yet. How about killing them all? Zichen said. Up to you. The old man said calmly, the law of this world is that the weak are prey to the strong. Now that you are stronger than them, You can do whatever you want with them. The existence of that thing seriously affects the aesthetics. Zichen looked up at the exchange castle and said, "That's simple." The old man only said 3 words. The light in the sky fell. The light was like lightning and hit the exchange castle. There was a roar in the city, and the castle collapsed instantly. Powerful fluctuations spread out in all directions, and countless resources fell from the sky. In the blink of an eye, the exchange castle in the city disappeared. Only the exchange core remained. Looking at the exchange core, Zichen nodded and said, "Yes, it looks much better now." "Young man, what do you plan to do?" the old man asked again. Zichen turned around and looked at the frightened natives. "Now, go back and get the awakening altar. Each family should bring at least 5. If there are enough, you can live. If there are not enough, your family will be destroyed." The frightened natives seemed to see hope. They immediately turned around and ran back to their families. The old man continued, "If you want to collect the awakening altar, you can tell me directly. I know where they are. As long as you don't leave the city, the awakening altar will not break." Zichen nodded and said, "Okay then. Collect all the awakening altars and protect them. Then, all the Protoss can awaken at will. Also, the exchange core will be open to the Protoss. If you do these 2 things, I will let the natives go." In fact, Zichen did not want to destroy their families. Over the years, the natives had been fighting to the death. They wanted to protect their families from being destroyed. Since they had suffered heavy losses, Zichen did not need to kill them all. The Matrix Genie could control everything in the city. He had the power to supervise. The awakening altar could be sealed with space. The family members brought the awakening altar over. If each family had 5, the big families could gather them. This was also because the Matrix Genie ensured that the awakening altar would not be destroyed. Otherwise, each family would only have 1 left. At this moment, the family leaders walked toward Zichen and handed over their awakening altars. In the crowd of natives, there were 2 inconspicuous people. They were from the Saint Lun family. They used to have 2 names. One was Drunkard, and the other was Trash. Now, the drunkard was not drinking. It was unknown if he had run out of money to buy wine. That Trash was no longer the same as before. His face was blank and foolish, and his eyes were flashing with a bright light. He glanced at the drunkard beside him. The drunkard nodded. The guy who was called Trash walked forward. Some people noticed this scene. However, with Zichen here, they did not dare to say anything. Saint Lentoin walked up to Zichen. Only Wang Yiping was there. When he looked at Zichen, he was not afraid at all. The people around turned their heads and watched this scene. "Congratulations on your return." Saint Lentoin looked at Zichen and said, "Does the promise we made back then still stand?" "Of course. What do you want?" asked Zichen. Saint Lentoin's face suddenly twisted. There was a ferocious look on his face. "I want all the rank 7 warriors of the Saint Lun family to die." Chapter 31-23. The conversation between Saint Rentoin and Zichen was extremely short. There were only a few words, but the information revealed shocked everyone. In an instant, the expressions of the remaining rank 7s from the Saint Lun family changed drastically. "Yin, why are you doing this?" said a rank 7s from the Saint Lun family. Saint Rentoin turned around and stared at him coldly. "Just call me Saint Rentoin, or Trash. I can't bear the name Yin. The surroundings were in an uproar. No one expected this to happen. Saint Rentoin was undoubtedly the first native to form an alliance with Zichen. "Yin, this is too much of a joke. The family hasn't mistreated you all these years, right?" said the rank 7s from the Saint Lun family again with an ugly smile on his face. "Of course we haven't mistreated me. Back then, I risked my life to get the contribution points from Zichen, and all of you took them away. For the past few hundred years, I've been the trash that everyone in the Saint Lun family hates, and my father is a drunkard that everyone despises. The family has treated us father and son extremely well," said Saint Rentoin coldly. "This may be a misunderstanding. As the saying goes, jade can't be made into anything without being cut. We're also training your mind, said the rank 7s again. At this time, as long as Saint Rentoin said a word, they could live. So what if they were a little shameless? Saint Rentoin, whose face had become ferocious due to anger, suddenly laughed. He said, "You're finally wagging your tails and begging for mercy in front of me like dogs. Actually, after thinking about it carefully, I also think this is a misunderstanding. After all, training one's mind is very important." The rank 7's smile froze, but he didn't dare to get angry. He nodded and smiled. "That's right. This is a misunderstanding." Saint Rentoin's smile didn't fade. He said again, "Since it's a misunderstanding, then let all the rank 6 from the Saint Lun family die together." "What?" The rank 7s stared at Saint Rentoin with wide eyes, wondering if he had heard wrong. Saint Rentoin ignored him. Instead, he turned around and looked at Zi Chen, clearly telling him that this wasn't a joke. "Little bastard, you must die." The rank 7s shouted angrily and charged toward Saint Rentoin. Saint Renton stared at him coldly and said, "If I die, the house of Saint Renton will be destroyed." Rank 7 paused and glared at him with hatred. Saint Renton said coldly, "You killed all the people in the family who could be killed in the name of righteousness. If it was really for the family, I wouldn't blame you. I could even let bygones be bygones and let you live. But your goal is not for your family, but for your own survival. Therefore, in order to strengthen the family, I also ask you to die. Don't worry, I won't forget what you've done for the family. I'll set up a memorial arch for you in the family's ancestral hall. Little bastard, I should have killed you back then." This rank 7's face was full of resentment. Behind him, the old man who had told Saint Rentoin to get lost was also trembling in fury. Zi Chen looked at the array genie beside him. The formation spirit nodded. Rays of light fell from the sky and landed on the bodies of the rank 7 and rank 6 cultivators. As the array genie, he knew everything that happened in the array. He also knew very well how many rank 7 and rank 6 cultivators the house of Saint Renton still had in the city. Although it was very inappropriate for him to take action, he was still willing to let these people die in exchange for the lives of the natives in the city. As the light fell, all the rank 6 and rank 7 cultivators of the house of Saint Renton were dead. Looking at the corpses on the ground, Saint Rentoin breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he turned to Zi Chen and said, "We agreed that you would elect me as the master of the family." Zi Chen nodded with a smile and said, "Now, you are the master of the house of Saint Renton." Saint Rentoin frowned slightly and said, "Isn't this too childish?" Zi Chen smiled and said, "No, if you want to be the master of all the forces among the natives, it's also possible." Saint Rentoin's eyes lit up and he said, "Can I? I'm only rank 1. Before, I was trash in everyone's eyes. Of course you can. If anyone is unwilling, they must die." Zi Chen looked back at the natives and said, "Does anyone refuse? You are welcome to raise any objections." These people were obviously shrewd. They immediately saluted Saint Rentoin and said, "Greetings, Master." Hearing these neat and loud voices, Saint Rentoin said with a smile, "It's still too childish, but I like it." In this way, only Wang Yipin's Saint Rentoin became the master of all the native forces. He took all the contribution points of the dead rank 6 and rank 7 cultivators. Later, these contribution points would all be exchanged for resources. His deal with Zi Chen could be said to be the biggest return at the smallest price. This matter would be discussed for many years to come. Saint Rentoin became the master of the family and took over the family. During this period, there were no voices of protest. Because as long as Zi Chen was alive, they would not have the courage to resist. Zi Chen did not communicate with the other Protoss. He only told Iron Sword that the people of the Nightmare Force could join Iron Sword Force when they arrived. Iron Sword naturally had no objection to this. The other rank 7 Protoss in the city wanted to talk to Zi Chen through Iron Sword, but Zi Chen rejected them directly. When he was attacked, these people did not even bother to put up a front. Naturally, he had nothing to talk to them about. Next, he rested in the city and waited for the city to settle down. The Protoss were completely liberated. They could exchange for resources at low prices and awaken their own powers for free. They were extremely grateful to Zi Chen. Saint Rentoin took control of the family. After everything settled down, he chose to go into seclusion. His realm was too low. Now that Zichen was helping him, no one dared to resist him. Once Zichen left, he would be in a difficult situation without strength. Fortunately, the Saint Rentoin family no longer had rank 6 and rank 7 cultivators. This made it much easier to take control. After Saint Rentoin went into seclusion, his father took over the family for him. With a family to take charge of, his father stopped drinking. Now, as long as one looked up, they could see the ball at the core trading area. All the Protoss could exchange for resources at any time, anywhere. The old man who called himself the spirit of the formation had disappeared. Including Iron Sword, no one in the city had seen him before. If Zichen had not appeared this time, he might never have appeared. Now that everything was back on track, the spirit of the formation replaced the rules and controlled everything here. Once someone violated the rules, they would be punished by the rules. Zichen had to comprehend Sword Dao after breaking through his realm, so he had not been idle recently. He stayed in the city alone while Pa Ji led the Dark Heavenly Ant out to fight. Since he had decided to leave, Zichen naturally would not forget the resources here. The resources here were endless. As long as he obtained enough contribution points to exchange, he could bring these resources back to the God Realm. Chapter 31-24. In the past few decades, more and more rank 3 cultivators had come to this level. Some of them were from the Nightmare faction and joined the Iron Sword faction. There were also some who weren't from the Nightmare faction but joined the Iron Sword faction after learning that Zichen was there. More than 4/5 of the people who came to this level would join the Iron Sword faction. This allowed the Iron Sword faction to develop rapidly in just a few decades. Perhaps there weren't many powerful cultivators in this faction, but it wouldn't take long for them to grow. After the crisis in the city was resolved, Heavenbreaker left. Zichen contacted him and told him his idea. "Is it difficult?" Zichen asked. Heavenbreaker stared at Zichen and said, "Of course it's difficult. 100,000 crystals." Zichen didn't wait for Heavenbreaker to finish and said directly, 200,000. 150,000. No. Do you know that one crystal costs 1,000 contribution points? How many contribution points do you need for 150,000? Your contribution points aren't yours, right? You know that they aren't mine. Is there a need to ask for so much? You picked them up for free. What's wrong with me taking some? Picked them up for free? Countless dark heavenly ants sacrificed their lives for those. What do you mean by picked them up for free? The Ant Queen also needs energy to break through. How can I take all the resources? 150,000, that's it. Seeing that Heavenbreaker was about to say something, Zichen didn't give him a chance to speak and said, "You have to consider me. I have a large family to take care of. If you take 150,000 Godly King's soul essences, do you know how many people I can nurture? They'll all be trash. You might as well give them to me." Heavenbreaker's attitude was firm. Zichen said, "How about this? As long as you can guarantee that we can return safely, I'll compensate you with some resources next time. Deal." After saying that, Heavenbreaker prepared to leave. Zichen asked, "What are you doing? This place is very special. Otherwise, it wouldn't have trapped Fina. I have to find her and discuss with her." Heavenbreaker turned into a ray of light and disappeared. After watching Heavenbreaker disappear, Zichen returned to the city. He did not look for Su Mengyaro and the others. After they had broken through, they would look for him. After returning to the city, Zichen went straight to his residence. Wherever he went, the God race people would look at him with worship in their eyes. The natives, on the other hand, looked at him with awe. After a few decades, the Protoss and the Aborigines once again cooperated, but this time, it was an equal cooperation. It was not like before, when the Protoss were purely oppressed. After returning to his residence, Zichen took out a piece of God King's soul essence and refined it. The Divine King's soul essence played an important role in his rapid rise in cultivation. It was also the greatest resource for breaking through in this world. In fact, This was an ultimate resource that could allow a divine king to reach the 9th rank in one go. As for how to reach the divine realm after reaching the 9th rank, Zichen had no idea. The surface area of the divine world was boundless, and the number of 9th grade divine kings was also boundless. However, only 9 of them were able to reach the heavenly god realm. Moreover, there would always only be 9 of them. Only when one of them died would there be someone to replace him. This made Zichen very surprised. If it was a realm that could be exchanged with cultivation, why was it that no one had reached it? What was the secret behind this? Zichen shook his head and smiled bitterly. He was only at the 6th grade now. There was still a long way to go before he reached the 9th grade. It was too early to think about the heavenly god realm now. Just as he was about to calm down and refine the god king's soul essence, Zichen heard Tai Jian's voice from outside. Zichen got up. After opening the door, he looked at Tai Jian in surprise. "I'm preparing to break through," Tai Jian said as soon as he entered. After breaking through from the 7th grade to the 8th grade, one would have to leave this world. Obviously, Tai Jian meant that he was going to leave. After reaching the 8th grade, where will you go? Zichen gestured for Tai Jian to sit down. Tai Jian shook his head and said, "I'm not sure, but it's unlikely to be the divine world." Zichen looked at Tai Jian and said, "Do you want to return to the divine world?" Tai Jian turned around and looked at him in surprise. Zichen said, "I have a way to break out of this world. There's a high chance that I can return to the divine world." "What do you mean?" Tai Jian was still confused. "In other words, if I want to leave now, I can break out of this world and return to the divine world. I don't need to follow the rules of this world." Zichen explained patiently. "How is that possible?" Tai Jian sat up in disbelief. Zichen said, "It's true. Think about it. If you want to return to the divine world, suppress your realm for now. If you don't want to return to the divine world, then you can break through and leave. As for the future development of Tai Jian's faction, you can arrange for someone you trust to take care of it." Tai Jian was shocked when he heard this. He had heard of breaking the rules of this world, but he had never encountered it. After all, this was a world created by the heavenly gods. It followed the heavenly gods' rules. If Zichen could really break out of this world without following the rules, wouldn't he have the strength to resist the heavenly gods' rules? Then, he thought of something. Recalling the scene of the arrow piercing through the sky, he felt that it was possible. Therefore, his heart became active. He had been in this world for too long. Naturally, he wanted to return to the divine world. After giving Zichen a clear answer, Tai Jian left the city and went out to fight. Obviously, he had the same idea as Zichen. After reaching the divine world, he wanted to leave with a large amount of resources. The city was very quiet. There were no more internal disputes and battles. Therefore, Zichen stayed in the city when he was cultivating. When he was not cultivating, he would go out to fight. However, compared to the Ant Queen, his contribution was pitifully small. With the Ant Queen, his contribution increased every day. The number was very impressive. In the blink of an eye, another 100 years passed. On this day, Su Mengyaro and the others came to the city to look for Zichen. Except for a few people who did not break through, the others had all broken through to the 6th level, including the monk and the others. At the same time, they also brought a lot of contribution. Zichen gestured for everyone to go and exchange for resources. It was time to leave. He had to go and find Saint Rentoin. The Saint Rentoin family had always been very quiet. Especially after losing all the 7th and 6th level experts, they were very low-key. Now, the family had been managed by Saint Rentoin's father. It was not bad. Zichen's appearance outside the mansion caused an uproar. The guards at the gate immediately went to report to the family. In a moment, Saint Rentoin's father and some elders quickly came out. They seemed to be in fear and trepidation. They had invited Zichen many times, but Zichen did not come to the mansion. This time, he came uninvited. This made everyone very nervous. "I'm here to find Saint Rentoin." Chapter 31-25. Zichen directly explained his intentions. This made the people of the St. Lun family less panic. Although St. Renton was in seclusion, Zichen had come personally, so he naturally had to come out of seclusion. St. Renton's father brought Zichen to a spacious hall and personally poured him some water. "Sir, please wait for a moment. My son will come out soon," St. Renton's father said respectfully. Zichen nodded and didn't say anything. He tried to be polite earlier, but the other party seemed very panicked, so he stayed silent. A moment later, footsteps sounded. St. Renton had come out of seclusion. Compared to 100 years ago, his realm had skyrocketed. He had directly reached the 4th rank of the king realm. Obviously, he also used the essence of the king of gods. "Sir, you're looking for me?" After entering, St. Renton looked at Zichen. His father had already left the hall. At the same time, he waved his hand, indicating for the people nearby to leave. Zichen indicated for St. Renton to sit first. He glanced outside the hall and said, "I'm going to leave this place." St. Renton studied Zichen. He was very puzzled. It was common knowledge that one could only leave after reaching the 8th rank. Obviously, Zichen hadn't reached the 8th rank yet. Then what did he mean by leaving? Going to other places in this world? If that was the case, there shouldn't be a need to tell him, right? "Leave this world," Zichen said again. St. Renton's mouth was open. He was confused and shocked. "We'll leave soon. Maybe we'll have a chance to come back. Before we leave, I think it's necessary to inform you so that you can be mentally prepared," Zichen said. St. Renton came back to his senses and smiled bitterly. In his original plan, Zichen still had a long time to leave this world, so during this time, he had plenty of time to grow until he had enough power to control the family. He didn't expect Zichen to have a way to leave when he was still at the 6th rank. The city now has its own rules. Things like oppression shouldn't happen anymore. Before I leave, I'll talk to the Matrix Spirit. In times of danger, it'll protect the St. Lun family. Zichen said, "If nothing unexpected happens, I'll come back here again. It won't take long. But if an accident happens, everything will be hard to say." Hearing this, St. Renton nodded and said, "My father should have cleaned up the family over the years. Now, it shouldn't be a problem for the St. Renton family to unite as one. I'm just afraid that other forces will deliberately suppress us." Zichen smiled faintly and said, "Then you should be more careful. At worst, you can just keep a low profile. When I return here again, I will solve everything for you. It seems that this is the only way. There's no need to be too deliberate. No one knows that I'm leaving. At most, they'll think that I'm going somewhere to cultivate in seclusion again." In history, no rank 6 martial artist had ever left, so the possibility of an accident happening to the Shengluan family was not high. He told St. Renton so that he could be mentally prepared. After that, Zichen left the St. Renton family. After that, Zichen took to the air and arrived in the sky. With a flash of light, the formation spirit elder appeared. The two of them chatted for a while. Then, Zichen went to the core trading area and exchanged all the resources he had. After that, Zichen left the city alone to look for Heavenbreaker. Zichen saw Heavenbreaker at Fina's residence. Before he left, he needed to confirm whether he could return. "The coordinates are clear. If nothing unexpected happens, I'll definitely be able to return." These were Heavenbreaker's words. However, it was obvious that he didn't dare to guarantee anything. Seeing the frown on Zichen's face, Fina said, "Heavenbreaker can break through all restrictions. If the coordinates are clear, he'll definitely be able to return here as long as he spends some time. Of course, it'll be the same when he leaves. The coordinates won't change, right?" Zichen asked worriedly. Fina smiled and said, "It's a soul body I created. You've seen her before. She's closely connected to the laws of this place. She's as clear and bright as a lighthouse in the mortal world." Zichen nodded and said, "All right then. When can we leave?" Heavenbreaker said, "When you fulfill your promise." Fina smiled and said, "Anytime. Then let's have everyone come in first." Zichen turned around and walked out of the room. Then, he opened his own world. The sky immediately darkened and space began to distort. A huge black hole appeared. Fina and Heavenbreaker walked out after him. Then, Fina used her soul to transmit messages. One after another, humanoid lifeforms flew into the sky. In addition to these humanoid lifeforms, there were also small spaces compressed by spatial techniques. After these small spaces entered Zichen's world, they disappeared. Then, the things in these small spaces appeared. They were mother nests. Their bodies were huge, their auras surged, and there were many of them. There were countless insect eggs in the surroundings. After they appeared, their bodies glowed again, forming a new spatial power that enveloped themselves. These mother nests were hidden in space, but to Zichen, they were naturally no secret. Looking at the countless insect eggs and mother nests, Zichen was shocked. Originally, he thought that Fina was the only mother nest that could produce God-King-level creatures. Now, it seemed that wasn't the case. There were many mother nests that could produce God-King-level creatures. We can't take away all the mother nests in this world. We have to leave some behind to maintain the development of this world. Fina's voice sounded from behind Zichen. Back then, they didn't know of my existence. If they knew, they would have thought of ways to destroy me. My strength has long reached the point where I can easily destroy that city. However, in order to maintain the balance and stability of this world, I can't take action. I can only hide these methods and hope that I can leave one day. At this moment, Zichen had taken in many experts. The number of experts was much more than the ones that Zichen had nurtured in the Nightmare faction. Compared to the God race, mother nests were the war machines of this world. While those spacetime creatures were flying towards Zichen's world, in another place, the Ant Queen also received the news. Then, she led countless dark heavenly ants and flew towards Zichen's world. After all the dark heavenly ants entered the world, Fina also controlled those spacetime creatures to enter Zichen's world. Zichen kept the world and went to look for Su Mengyaro and the others. After returning to the city, he found Su Mengyaro and the others. They had already exchanged all their contribution points. Then, Zichen went to call Tai Jian and everyone left together. After returning to the place where the spacetime creatures were overseeing, Fina handed over some matters to her spirit body. Then, she entered Zichen's world. Sky Splitter turned into a vast sky and fell into Zichen's hand. During this period, it had devoured 150,000 God King soul essences. Zichen's body flickered with golden light. He pulled open the longbow. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged wildly. Under the attention of many spacetime creatures, an arrow was formed and pierced through the sky. The arrow landed in the void. The void trembled and distorted, revealing a passage. Swoosh. Chapter 31:26. This time, Zichen only brought Tai Jian with him. That was because he was confident that he could return, so he wasn't in a hurry to bring the others away. Tai Jian and Zichen were on a training trip. Moreover, no one would have guessed that he would leave. Relatively speaking, the Saint Lun family didn't have any problems. A passage appeared in the boundless spacetime turbulence. A beast and a man walked out of the passage. The beast had a single horn. It walked in front, and wherever it passed, the turbulence made way for it. It was Heavenbreaker. He no longer transformed into a bow. Instead, he returned to his original form. Zichen followed behind him. "You still haven't found it?" Zichen asked. There was a hint of worry in his voice. There was no time field in this spacetime turbulence. Zichen and Heavenbreaker walked for an unknown amount of time. Previously, Heavenbreaker had transformed into a bow to cut through the turbulence. After some time, he revealed his true form and used the horn on his forehead to cut through space. "We don't have the exact coordinates. We can only walk and see." Heavenbreaker spoke. Another beam of light flew out of his horn and cut through another stretch of spacetime turbulence. This time, a complete spatial world appeared at the end of the turbulence. Heavenbreaker's eyes lit up and he immediately flew forward. Zichen followed behind. Following a flash of light, they arrived in another world. This was an unfamiliar world. The energy between heaven and earth was very thin. With Zichen's current strength, which was equivalent to that of a 6th-rank divine king, He instantly spread out his spiritual sense and easily enveloped this world. There were no humans living in this world. There were only a few strange beasts with extremely low cultivation levels. The space around him and Heaven Breaker was constantly distorting. Ripples spread out. Wherever the ripples passed, mountains and rocks would all be reduced to dust. One after another, cracks appeared in the void, and the world became very unstable. All the strange beasts in this world instantly prostrated themselves on the ground. They continuously kowtowed in the direction of Chen and Heaven Breaker. It was as if they were kowtowing to a god. This world's level is too low. We have to leave quickly. Another beam of light flew out from Heaven Breaker's horn. That beam of light tore through space, forming a tunnel. Chen and Heaven Breaker turned into beams of light and entered the tunnel. Their realms were too high. If they continued to stay in this world, it wouldn't be long before this world collapsed. This was because this world was unable to withstand an existence of such a level. The world's laws were also extremely weak, and they could not even achieve the most basic suppression. Leaving the world, he continued to enter the space turbulence to find the next location. With Chen's current strength, the terrifying spatial turbulence was no longer enough to kill him. He could pass through it at will. Wang. Breaking open another world, Chen and Heaven Breaker entered. This seemed to be a primitive world. There were still no humans in this world, but there were countless enormous creatures. They looked somewhat similar to the dragon race, but they were clearly not true dragons. In fact, they were not even Western dragons. They could be called dragon beasts. This was an unfamiliar world. The man and the beast did not linger and quickly left. In the following time, they discovered many more worlds. These worlds were all very strange. Some were filled with beasts, while others were filled with oceans. There were all kinds of strange creatures in the oceans that could control water and attack. Chen had never thought that there would be such worlds in this world. However, these worlds did not seem to belong to the range of life stars, nor were they planets controlled by the god realm. They seemed to have been quietly born in the endless space turbulence. Perhaps in the future, these worlds would give birth to their own rules, causing this world to expand endlessly and give birth to many experts. It was also possible that in the endless years, they would be obliterated and disappear in the space turbulence. After a while, Chen became more and more confident. This was because the time they spent walking in the space turbulence had become very short. They could break open a new space at any time. In the end, the space turbulence disappeared, and countless spaces appeared in front of them. They were like countless space fragments piled together. Heaven Breaker observed these space fragments and said, "Each space fragment is a complete world. Some may record the past, some may record the present, and some may record the future." Although Chen had comprehended the power of space, he still did not understand the mysterious space techniques. However, he knew about traveling through space and time. "Which space are we going to now?" asked Chen. "The god realm you mentioned should be very big, right?" asked Heaven Breaker. Chen said, "It's vast and boundless. In the eyes of the god race, the god realm is the highest world. The god race of the god realm calls themselves the higher life forms." Heaven Breaker looked at the space fragments in front of them and said, "Then it's in the depths. We will find it soon. If we go back now, can we still go back?" Chen asked again. He wanted to make sure if he could go back to his original world through this space fragment. Of course, because the coordinates are like lighthouses. As long as we pay attention, we can still see it. Heaven Breaker stepped forward. The horn released a beam of light again, and a passage appeared in front of them. Chen did not have a deep understanding of space, so he did not know that in the present world, only Heaven Breaker could take him to this place and see the countless fragments of space and memories. He could casually enter a fragment and affect the future of that world. He could even change the past. This was something that the 9 heavenly gods of the god realm did not possess. At this moment, Chen was like a traveler in space. He passed through countless spaces and saw countless scenes. There were people, beasts, all kinds of living beings, battles, breakthroughs, and schemes. As he continued forward, Chen saw an even larger spatial fragment. There were many scenes in it, and the most common ones were of the god race and creatures from another space. Is this the space? Heavenbreaker came to the front of the space and stared at the image inside. That's right, it's here. Zichen was unable to hide his excitement. Let's go. A beam of light appeared in front of Heavenbreaker again. The beam of light transformed into a passage, and he and Zichen walked into it. After sensing the aura of this world, Zichen said with certainty, "That's right, it's here. We're back. This is the God realm." Heavenbreaker said with disdain. "It's far smaller than the previous world. You call this a higher level world? Can we go back to our original world now?" Zichen asked. Heavenbreaker closed his eyes. After a moment, he opened them and said, "It should be fine." In this way, Zichen was completely at ease. Now, he had to find the 10th realm. Chapter 31:27. Whoosh. Zichen's figure appeared. His divine king aura surged and the world seemed to come to a standstill for a moment. The divine envoys who were fighting stopped and looked up at the sky. Their faces were filled with shock. Even the creatures from another spacetime that didn't have any intelligence stopped and didn't dare to continue fighting. "Greetings, Your Excellency." Zichen landed and looked at the small team of divine envoys. The divine envoys in the team saluted Zichen in fear. "Which region is this?" Zichen asked. "Ah!" The divine envoys were stunned when they heard this. Zichen pointed at the ground beneath his feet and asked, "Which domain is this?" The small team of divine envoys was at a loss. Seeing that they didn't do it on purpose, Zichen asked again, "Where is this place?" "This is Lord Glenn's territory." The divine envoys in the lead said respectfully, "Lord Glenn is the strongest person in this region. We are all under Lord Glenn's jurisdiction." "Then what is Glenn's cultivation level?" Zichen asked. "He is at the 9th level." The divine envoys said proudly. "Then do you know which region is under Glenn's control in the 10 regions of the divine realm?" "The 10 regions of the divine realm?" The divine envoys' expressions changed again. "What, you haven't heard of it?" Zichen looked at the divine envoys. Their cultivation levels were very low and they hadn't been in this world for long. Perhaps they didn't know much about the divine realm. "We have heard of it, but the 10 regions of the divine realm disappeared 10,000 years ago." The divine envoy's leader said. "What?" When Zichen heard this, his expression changed. "The 10 regions of the divine realm disappeared 10,000 years ago." The divine envoy's leader said again. Seeing that they didn't seem to be lying, Zichen felt that it was inconceivable. He had only left this world for a little over 1,000 years. It hadn't even been 10,000 years. The 10 regions of the divine realm had been destroyed 10,000 years ago. Could it be that he and Potian had been walking in the spacetime turbulence for several thousand years? "Is this the divine realm?" Zichen asked again. The group nodded. Although they were puzzled by the question raised by this lord, they didn't dare to not answer. "Then is there a role of generals and role of kings here?" Zichen asked again. "Yes, 108 divine kings and 1,800 divine generals." The leader of the divine envoys said proudly, "Lord Ji Lun is one of them." When Zichen heard that, he was already completely speechless. Clearly, with the absence of the heavenly god, the situation of this world had completely changed. Where does Glenn live? Obviously, he couldn't find out anything from these people, so Zichen decided to ask Glenn. If Ji Lun was an expert on the general board, then he must have been in the divine realm for more than 10,000 years. He must know what happened back then. These oracles pointed to the place where Lord Glenn lived for Zichen. It was a city that was very easy to find and very lively. It was called Guluan City. The formation in the city was not activated, but there were many divine generals in the city. Zichen came to the sky above the city and descended. "Who dares trespass on Guluan City?" With this shout, one divine general after another soared into the sky, but when they sensed the aura descending from the sky, their expressions changed drastically. An intense pressure appeared in the air and pressed down on the bodies of these divine generals who were in the air. Boom! Their bodies fell to the ground, shattering the stone slabs beneath their feet and kicking up clouds of dust. Everyone in the city looked in this direction with shocked expressions. Where's Glenn? After descending, Zichen scanned the city with his spiritual sense and sent a voice transmission. I'm Glenn. A figure flew out of the city lord's residence. It was a 9th-rank divine general wearing a suit of general armor. Who are you? How dare you trespass on my city? Ji Lun, who was wearing his general armor, said coldly as he looked at Zichen. Buzz. Zichen's body flashed with light and his aura began to circulate. Divine General Galen only felt a tremendous pressure coming from the opposite side. His body could no longer stand steadily as he collapsed to the ground with a boom. At the same time, his extremely high-grade general armor creaked as though it could be deformed at any moment from the pressure. Glenn paled, his eyes filled with fear. He no longer had any arrogance as he loudly begged for mercy. Your Excellency, spare me. Your Excellency, spare me. Zichen saw the number on Glenn's back, 1796. With this ranking, he could fight a group of them alone when he left. He really didn't know where Glenn's arrogance came from. The 108 divine generals of the past had now become 1,800. This was too much of a mess. The surrounding divine generals were so frightened that they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Just the pressure alone was enough to immobilize a divine general, so they were no match for him. They had long since lost the courage to attack. The pressure on Glenn's body instantly disappeared, and Zichen's voice rang out, "Let me ask you a few questions. Answer truthfully." Yes. Your Excellency, please ask away. Glenn, who was lying on the ground, repeatedly nodded. The pressure had disappeared, but he did not stand up. Which domain of the 10 domains of the God realm was this? Zichen asked. Glenn was slightly taken aback. He didn't expect this question, so he said, the 8th domain of the past. The 8th domain, the domain controlled by Western Shell God? Yes. Western Shell God was Sina's father. Back then, Sina had advised him to die and was extremely unfriendly to him. What's the current structure of the God realm like? Are there still 10 domains? Zichen asked again. No, the current divine world is already divided into many forces. Among them, 108 divine kings occupy 108 regions. Other than that, there are also some adopted sons of heavenly gods and the maternal forces of the heavenly gods' children who have opened up their own regions. Glenn said. Which factions occupied the 10th domain back then? Zichen asked again. Glenn thought for a moment, then said, it was occupied by many factions. The most famous of them all was the expert on the king rankings, Lauren Man. How do we go to the 10th domain now? Are there teleportation arrays? Glenn said, there are, but they are all in the core areas. The teleportation arrays now are not the same as before. They can be opened at any time. The Great War of the God Realm has already caused the God Realm to be torn apart. Teleportation arrays are generally not open to the public. Do you have a map of the God Realm? No. The God Realm is still at war. The various factions are fighting over resources. Our group will gather soon. Aren't you the city lord of this place? Glenn laughed bitterly. Now, all the factions are under the jurisdiction of those powerful god kings. Those who do not obey have already disappeared from this world. Zichen had expected that the God realm might be in chaos, but he hadn't expected it to be so chaotic. There were battles everywhere. If the gods returned and saw the God realm in this state, what would they do? Or rather, if those god kings dared to wage war on such a large scale and establish their own factions, did it mean that they knew something? That the gods would never return? Chapter 31:28. Zichen asked for the general direction and then used teleportation to leave. He didn't go to the core cities to find the teleportation portals. After countless years of war, the teleportation portals should have been destroyed. The divine realm had spent countless years to construct the 10 regions, and it was like a huge net that could be connected at any time through spider silk. However, it had been completely destroyed just like that. The 10 domains were like a plate of loose sand. The God world was infinitely large. Even Heaven Breaker admitted that. Even though Zichen could teleport hundreds of thousands of miles, it would take a long time to reach the 10th domain from here. During this time, He saw many battles. Some were between the god race and the other space-time, and some were between the god race. In short, the god race was in chaos. In the end, Zichen called out Heavenbreaker and directly broke through space. This was even faster than teleportation. The horn on Heavenbreaker's forehead released a beam of light. The light fell into the void and became a tunnel. Zichen followed Heavenbreaker into it. Just like that, he deliberately let Heavenbreaker control the distance and try to move within a small range. Otherwise, they would instantly leave this world. When he estimated that he had reached the 10th domain, Zichen started to teleport again and again, trying to find some familiar cities. However, he was disappointed. The 10th domain had changed greatly. He couldn't recognize it at all. Moreover, this single domain was extremely large. Zichen then asked some god race members, but no one knew where the goddess was. After that, Zichen returned to the world and told everyone what had happened. When they heard, they were shocked and worried. Although Wuji and the craftsman ancestor were there, they definitely wouldn't rely on those factions. The flames of war were burning in the god world. He didn't believe that the factions from the life stars would be spared. But the problem is that we can't find the way back. Zichen said helplessly, there are no buildings that we are familiar with, and there are no teleportation portals that we can use. Although we are probably in the 10th domain, the 10th domain is still limitless. We have been searching for a long time, but there is still no clue. Find Divine King Sandini. He's definitely still alive. Find the city he's in and we can find the way back. Li Ari, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. Apart from Tai Jian, Martin, and the others, everyone's eyes lit up. Obviously, this was a good idea. And the reason why Li Ari immediately thought of Sandini was because he had almost killed her before. Now that he had a direction, everything else became much simpler. It didn't take long for Zichen to find out where Sacred King Sandini was. Not only had he not died in the chaos, he had even become an overlord. After asking around again, Zichen discovered that the area controlled by Sacred King Sandini was precisely the area where Zichen had once been. Zichen immediately set off. After teleporting again and again, he circled around Sacred King Zenith's city. Finally, he saw some familiar places. They were all dilapidated cities whose cores had long been destroyed. A few days later, Zichen saw Tobi City. It was a city that they had once developed, but it had long since been destroyed. Then, he saw the cities of Ya Wei, Ben Senlu, and the others. Naturally, all of them had been destroyed. The cities were in ruins, and there were no signs of life. The glory of the past was gone. After arriving here, he had the exact coordinates. Zichen teleported again, heading towards the place where they lived. He had only developed 2 cities. In these 2 cities, there were ancient tree kings overseeing them. Ordinary enemies couldn't do anything to them. However, Zichen didn't have any confidence that they could survive in the chaos. Zichen was very nervous, and so were the others. This was because their friends were here, their roots in this world. After teleporting again and again, they finally arrived at the area that was supposed to be lush with ancient trees. However, it was empty in front of them. The wind blew, and yellow sand flew into the sky. This place had become a desert. The ground was full of potholes, and the traces of a great battle were extremely obvious. Wherever his spiritual sense passed, there was no vegetation, not even creatures from another dimension. Zichen's heart sank to the bottom. His figure flashed again, and he arrived at the center of the battlefield. There was a city there. There were some scattered buildings in the city, but the buildings had long been destroyed. In the center of the city, there was a towering ancient tree that had lost its core. That was Giano's original body. Obviously, Giano was dead. There were no living creatures in the city. Zichen scanned with his spiritual sense and found nothing else. The teleportation array in the city had long disappeared. With a flash of light, Monk and the others walked out. When they saw everything around them clearly, they were stunned. Then, sadness began to spread. Did everyone die in the battle? Martin and the others looked at the ruined surroundings and could guess what had happened. They were silent. We still have one more city, Su Mengyaro said. Let's go and take a look. Under Zichen's lead, the group set off for the second city. Soon, they arrived and saw that it was still a ruined city. In the center of the city, the ancient tree that could also become a king was also dead. How could this be? Monk roared angrily. Which damn guy dared to attack us? In addition to anger, there was also helplessness. They can't all be dead. Zichen said in a low voice, those misty shadows and giant crocodiles should still be alive. Moreover, the craftsman ancestor and the others have experienced many wars. It's impossible that they didn't take precautions. The others turned to look at Zichen. Their despairing hearts were rekindled with hope. Let's find a way to go to the Life Star. The flames of war can't have spread there. Perhaps they have retreated to the Life Star, Zichen said. This undoubtedly gave them hope. However, it was easier said than done to return to the Life Star. The entire divine world was in chaos. The passages had either disappeared or closed. They couldn't go back to the city that connected to the divine world. Su Mengyaro said, even if they went back, they should have left some people to guard this place or leave some clues for us. Then let's go back and take a look. The group returned to the dilapidated city. Then, they stayed here and patiently looked for clues that they could leave behind. Time passed day after day. Their patience was worn out. They were full of worries. On a full moon night, moonlight shone, illuminating the world. The surroundings were quiet. Zichen sat cross-legged in the ruined city. He couldn't calm down. The sand outside the city gradually became moist. Then, a thin layer of water vapor rose, turning into a layer of mist. The mist was very thin and lingering. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't notice it. However, Zichen had been paying attention to the surroundings. Thus, the moment the mist appeared, he noticed it and teleported in front of it. It wasn't normal for mist to rise in a dry desert. Zichen's arrival seemed to have stirred up the mist. The mist dispersed and slowly disappeared. It's me. I'm back. Zichen spoke. His rule energy appeared beside him, falling into the mist. Then, it forcibly gathered the mist into a humanoid creature. Chapter 31-29. Looking at the misty figure, Zichen heaved a sigh of relief. However, when the misty figure saw him, he didn't seem happy. His eyes were filled with fear and confusion. Swoosh! The light of laws around Zichen disappeared. Without the suppression of laws, the misty figure disappeared. As soon as the misty figure disappeared, Tyrant and the others arrived and asked what happened. I saw the misty figure, Zichen said with a smile. Although it was an unfamiliar misty figure, he still felt a sense of familiarity. The others, who had been tense, also relaxed at this moment. Next, they just had to wait. Wind appeared in the surroundings. There was mist in the wind. It came from all directions and gradually surrounded the place. Looking at the mist, Zichen's rule power appeared once again. The mist quickly took shape and took the shape of a human. Lord, it's really you. In front of the humanoid figure stood a tall existence. It was the king of the misty figure. When he saw Zichen, he was very excited. Zichen nodded at the misty figure and said, "How are the others?" The misty figure said excitedly, "Everyone is fine. 10,000 years. We have waited for 10,000 years. Lord has finally returned." Just as the misty figure was speaking, in another direction outside the city, a space suddenly opened and formed a passage. Someone walked out of the passage. The first to walk out was LV Peng. Then, Wuji, the craftsman, and those who had stayed back then. Seeing that everyone was unharmed, Zichen let out a sigh of relief. He immediately walked forward and gave LV Peng a hug. "You're finally back." After seeing everyone, LV Peng was incomparably excited. Seeing this place turned into ruins gave us a fright. "What happened back then?" Zichen asked. "After you left, the divine world fell into chaos. We weren't spared. At first, there were aristocratic families who came to recruit us. We didn't agree. In the end, the divine king came to recruit us. We knew something was wrong, so we made preparations in advance." LV Peng gave a brief account of what had happened that year. Although it was simple, everyone could still feel the danger involved. Just as they were done with their preparations, the battle broke out. Their opponents had come unexpectedly, and their scale was much larger than when the heaven god's children had come. After a simple battle, LV Peng and the rest all retreated. During this period of time, they had completely given up on the ancient trees in the periphery. The misty shadow and giant crocodile had left after the initial battle, and the mother nest had deliberately suffered huge losses. This was all for the sake of everyone's survival. LV Peng had destroyed the teleport formation leading to the Life Star. Next, Gyno controlled the battle to continue until countless ancient trees were killed and the tree hearts were dug out. This battle lasted for about 100 years. Their opponents seemed to have the intention of using them to refine weapons. In the end, they killed their way into the city. At that time, Gyno's real body had already left, leaving behind only a clone. When the enemy tried to control it, it chose to destroy its soul. Thus, their opponents took the spirit fruit and the Tree King's heart. From then on, LV Peng and the rest had been hiding until today. During this time, LV Peng would send the Misty Shadow to investigate. Because he was worried that the enemy would find out, he would only appear on the night of the full moon. "What's everyone's current realm?" asked Zi Chen. "The highest is 9th level general. We've been hiding and haven't shown ourselves. We don't have many resources left," said LV Peng. "It doesn't matter. I have many resources here. Do you know which faction attacked you?" "It was God King Zack, but I've already heard that he's under God King Sandini's jurisdiction. Our territory has always been under the control of God King Zenith." Hearing this, Zi Chen frowned and said, "So it was Sandro who destroyed us?" "You could say that." Also, when the two sides were fighting, God King Sandini's side also sent many creatures from another spacetime. "We suspect that they also control the mother nest," guessed LV Peng. Hearing this, Zi Chen's lips curled into a faint smile. "There's no need to worry. I'm just afraid that they don't have the goods. Since everyone is safe, let's call them out. We're going to rebuild the sect." "But..." LV Peng looked at Zi Chen with some hesitation. "Since we're back, you don't have to worry anymore. God King Sandini, right? Let's settle our old grudges together." Zi Chen said, "Have Vigny and Gyno been accumulating energy these past few years?" "They have. We've been waiting for this day." LV Peng nodded. Zi Chen laughed heartily when he heard this. "That's great. Let everyone come out and use our original place. How we were destroyed in the past, we'll rise again now." LV Peng and Zi Chen had known each other for a long time and knew Zi Chen's character. Since he said so, he naturally had confidence. LV Peng didn't say anything else and opened the space again to let everyone out. These people had been staying in a unique space all this time. When they heard LV Peng's voice, they saw Zi Chen's group in the crowd. In an instant, all kinds of excited exclamations sounded. Jolena and the other divines bowed to Yi Chen, excitedly calling her goddess. The others came forward and greeted Zi Chen. Gyno turned into a ray of light and came to Zi Chen's side. He smiled and said, "You're finally back." Zi Chen smiled and replied, "There were some problems. You can recover now." Qiao Nuo said, "Is it here?" Zi Chen nodded. "Good." Gyno turned into a ray of light and flew into the withered tree in the city. After his soul went in, the withered tree began to emit a green light. The originally lifeless dead tree immediately became full of vitality. Spring came to a withered tree. Everyone turned their heads and looked at this scene in surprise. Zi Chen looked at Gyno and said, "Recover to your peak state first and establish a city." "Yes." Gyno began to grow. Green vegetation replaced the old bark, and countless branches and leaves grew out. It continued to rise and extend until it became a city of trees. Looking at this city of trees, many people shed tears of excitement. It's been 10,000 years since the city was destroyed. After 10,000 years of waiting, this day had finally come. "Continue to develop, there's no need to be afraid," Zi Chen said in a deep voice. Buzz. Chapter 3130. While Gyno was growing, Zi Chen looked back at Vigny and said, "Vigny, you go too. Develop as you wish." Vigny nodded and turned into a ray of light, flying above Gyno. The next moment, space opened one after another, and countless creatures from another spacetime surged out like a flood. The ground in the distance was constantly shaking. Giano, who had reached level 9, not only developed more ancient trees, but his level was also extremely high. At present, Giano had already far surpassed the ancient tree king that Zi Chen had killed before. The city was quickly completed, and tree houses appeared one after another. This place had become a city of trees. Everyone looked at this scene excitedly. Zi Chen looked at the Misty King in the other direction. His figure flashed and disappeared from this place. The next moment, a thick fog appeared in the forest. The ground became extremely slippery, and it could turn into a swamp at any time. The giant crocodiles were hiding in the swamp. The Misty King and the giant crocodiles were of a very high level, but to the current Zi Chen, they were much weaker. After everything in the city stabilized, Zi Chen stepped forward and waved his sleeve. Pieces of superb crystal appeared and flew into the sky. Zi Chen said, "Vigni, Giano, you too refine the superb crystal." These superb crystal were obtained by Zi Chen when he formed an alliance with Kerry's forces on the first floor. There were a lot of them, but after reaching level 3, he had not used them. He had been using the high-level God King's soul essences. Now that they were all level 9, it was best to use the superb crystal. If they used the God King's soul essences now, it would be extremely tiring. At the same time, the Misty King in the outside world flew back. Zi Chen also gave him a lot of superb crystal. The others can collect their superb crystal later. Zi Chen looked up at the sky and said, "Vigni, get those creatures out of the forest." Vigni didn't understand what Zi Chen meant, but he still did as he was told. All the spacetime creatures flew towards the outside world. Just as these spacetime creatures came out, Zi Chen opened the world. The city that had been illuminated by the tree houses and Giano's light was now plunged into darkness once more. The auras of God Kings emerged from the darkness one after another. When everyone saw what the thing in the darkness was, their faces were filled with shock. There were countless black ants. Most importantly, all of them were God Kings. Heavens! Countless God Kings! Cries of alarm continuously sounded out, and those who had been quite confused now understood why Zi Chen dared to rebuild the city and why he did not fear those factions. With so many divine king-level black ants here, even if another great battle broke out, this would be a city that could never be conquered. "Where did you find them? Aren't they too powerful?" LV Peng exclaimed. Beside him, Wuji, Craftsman, and the others were also extremely shocked. Due to the lack of resources, they had completely widened the gap between them and Zi Chen. In fact, the level of any random black ant was higher than everyone here. Everyone was extremely shocked, and they became even more excited. The number of dark heavenly ants was beyond their expectations. There was an endless stream of them. After the dark heavenly ants appeared, they took the initiative to walk out of the city. They formed a group like a well-trained army and they consciously left the city. Then, they walked into the forest without destroying the ancient trees and walked out of the forest. Even so, the dark heavenly ants in the city were still full, as though there would never be an end to them. Swoosh! With a flash of brilliance, Pa Ji appeared next to Zi Chen. Zi Chen looked at Pa Ji and said, "Tell the queen ant that she can leave her original body in the city. As for the location, she can choose for herself." Pa Ji nodded and communicated with the queen ant. With a flash of brilliance, the queen ant's original body appeared. It was a huge creature. After it appeared, it glanced at Zi Chen, then glanced at the surroundings. Its figure flashed once more as it headed underground. "I want to go to the underground space. There's a slight obstruction." The queen ant's voice rang in Zi Chen's mind. "Giano, make way." Zi Chen hurriedly transmitted his voice. Giano was only a level 9 general. He couldn't withstand the queen ant's torment. The queen ant might destroy Giano's vitality in an instant. By then, Zi Chen wouldn't even have a place to cry. Giano's rhizomes covered the underground like a spider web, forming a rule barrier that could prevent the enemy from attacking from underground. At the same time, there was also a rule barrier in the air. However, this level of obstruction was nothing to the queen ant. Therefore, The rhizomes immediately withdrew. A loophole appeared in the rule and the queen and entered the depths of the underground through the loophole. Then, it formed a space of its own. An endless stream of dark heavenly ants finally appeared from Zichen's world. The city became bright again and all the dark heavenly ants walked towards the forest outside the city. Giano sensed that these dark heavenly ants didn't stay in the forest. Instead, they left the forest and disappeared from the outside world, sneaking into the underground. As the others couldn't see what was happening outside, they didn't feel anything unusual. However, Giano was very puzzled. Originally, he thought that the reason why Vigny's subordinates left the forest was to make these black ants stay. Now, it seemed like that wasn't the case. Just as Giano was filled with doubts, he saw that Zichen's world didn't close. Other creatures appeared from within. These creatures were very similar to the creatures from the alternate spacetime that Vigny had created previously. However, their levels were very high. Each of them was at the God King realm. There were even more of these creatures from the alternate spacetime. Hence, exclamations sounded again. What are these? Mother nests, the craftsman asked. Yes. Zichen nodded. But as long as the creatures from the alternate spacetime nurtured by the mother nests reach the general realm, won't they become members of the divine race? These are already God Kings. Why are they still in this state? The craftsman was very puzzled. Zichen shook his head and said, I'm not sure either. They should be a higher level life form. Not a higher level life form. It's the highest level intelligent life form. Did you bring it back to the mother nests? Vigny's voice sounded in Zichen's mind. He seemed very excited. At that moment, Fina appeared beside Zichen. She looked around and saw the tree city. A hint of surprise flashed across her eyes. Then, her gaze landed on Giano and she said, Not bad. It's just that your realm is a little too low. Then, her gaze moved again. Her gaze seemed to have penetrated countless spaces and landed on Vigny. She was even more surprised. I didn't expect you to have such a thing. Can you help it? Zichen asked. This was Vigny's request. At this moment, he was very excited. However, he didn't dare to speak to Fina directly. This was because in his eyes, Fina was like an ordinary person seeing a king. The difference in status between the two was too great. No problem. Fina nodded and said, You give me the resources, and I'll give you the method. It won't take long for it to awaken and ascend. Chapter 31:31. Leave. Fina turned to Zichen and said, That's not what we agreed on back then. I said I would fight for you. You don't have to do that. You agreed to help Vigny. That's the greatest help you can give me, Zichen said. Fina tilted her head and looked at Zichen. She blinked and said, You don't dislike me, do you? How is that possible? Zichen emphasized. For someone like Fina, he wouldn't be able to get her even if he begged her. How could he dislike her? Since that's the case, then it's settled. I'll go outside and take a look. My subordinates will stay here and listen to your orders. If you're in danger, I'll appear, Fina said. Is that okay? Zichen didn't want to force Fina to stay by his side and work for him just because he was the one who brought her out. He knew very well that Fina would be very useful if she stayed by his side. That was because she represented an endless army of divine kings. There's nothing wrong with that. Even if you chase it away, it won't leave. Heavenbreaker walked out of Zichen's world. Boring. Can't you just let me talk? Let's go. A ray of light appeared from Fina's body. This ray of light flew to where Vigny was hiding. Before Vigny could get hold of this ray of light, Fina's figure had already disappeared. I'm sleepy. Don't disturb me if there's nothing. Heavenbreaker said and walked into a wooden house. He was very casual, as if he was in his own home. The others still hadn't recovered from their shock. This time, Zichen returned. Not only did he become stronger, but he also brought so many powerful existences with him. With such battle strength, he indeed had the qualifications to settle down and start anew. These powerful spacetime creatures all hid in the forest. Zichen turned around to look at the excited crowd and said, All right, the next level is level 9. Come to me to collect resources and try to break through to the God King realm as soon as possible. Zichen brought back a lot of resources this time, and these resources were specially prepared for everyone. Can the teleport formation connect to life stars? Zichen looked at LV Peng and asked. LV Peng nodded and said, yes, I only destroyed the teleportation array on one of the nodes. It won't take long for it to be restored. Zichen said, then let's begin. From now on, we will be taking root here. Regardless of whether Heaven God could return or not, Zichen now had the strength to protect himself. He no longer had to live a life of caution, worrying about all sorts of schemes and invasions. It could be said that this time, he had truly taken root in the God world. He now had a foundation, and the power to dominate. After that, Zichen distributed Superm Crystal to all level 9 divine generals so that they could cultivate and break through. In one night, a city of trees appeared. The desert turned into a forest, and the ancient trees in the forest were so lush that they covered the sky. Zichen and the others were in this city, but they did not feel anything strange. However, the others in this area felt a surge of energy between heaven and earth. It could be said that for the entire night, the energy between heaven and earth was turbulent, as if some sort of rare treasure had appeared. In this area, all the God race members noticed the abnormality in the sky. They all guessed that a rare treasure had appeared. That night, many God race members set off in that direction. They did not see the rare treasure, but they saw countless spacetime creatures and an oasis in the desert. Some God race members were puzzled, but even more were shocked. They remembered that many years ago, there was a popular faction here. It was said that it was founded by a son of God. That faction was besieged by other sons of God, but they won every time. It was not until 10,000 years ago, when the Son of God left, that the faction was destroyed. But now, it seemed that the faction had recovered, and in a single night. It was shocking. There were also some who had a clearer understanding of what had happened 10,000 years ago. Besides being shocked, they were also excited. This was because the oases here were all opportunities. All of the ancient trees had tree hearts. That was an extraordinary opportunity. Therefore, they quickly retreated, wanting to tell His Excellency about this. The leader of the faction that had destroyed all the ancient trees was called Zack. Back then, he was a level 5 God King. Now, he was a level 6 God King. Of course, he would not do it himself. Everything was done by his subordinates. His direct superior was none other than Sacred King Sandini. As the son of God, Sandini had long since reached the level 9 God King realm. Now, he was one of the 108 God Kings. That day, Zack heard the report from his subordinates. He was surprised that the desert had turned into an oasis, but he did not care. Although there were some opportunities there, he did not care about them at all. He refused the request to investigate personally. With a wave of his hand, he casually arranged for a level 1 God King to lead people to destroy the oasis. Zichen's faction had recovered, but before he could take revenge, the enemy had come. On the third day of his expansion, a God race army and some spacetime creatures arrived outside his territory. They attacked the spacetime creatures on the periphery. When he heard this, Zichen's lips curled into a cold smile. I haven't come looking for you, but you've come knocking on my door. Then let's start here. He did not give an order to the Queen Ant. He only gave some instructions to the spacetime creatures brought by Fina. After that, he did not say anything else. Now, Zichen could guarantee that this was a city that would never be conquered. The powerhouse leading the team this time was a level 1 God King called Mars. He knew this area well. He had participated in the destruction of this place. He was interested in the opportunities that Lord Zack did not care about because these tree hearts were different. If there were enough of them, he could go to the core city and exchange them for opportunities for God Kings. He led the team here, and when he saw the boundless forest, there was an obvious change in his eyes. His mood became excited. Looking at this boundless sea of trees, he seemed to see his own path of advancement. Kill. He waved his hand and shouted. The powerhouses and spacetime creatures he brought charged forward and clashed with Zichen's spacetime creatures. In the air, Wang Yiping's Mars led a group of level 9 divine generals and headed straight for the forest. Before the army reached here, he could not wait to get more tree hearts. However, as soon as he approached the ancient forest, he felt a dangerous aura. This caused him to stop abruptly and look down in shock. The level 9 divine generals who came with him also stopped and looked ahead in surprise. Spacetime creatures rushed out. There were only 2 of them. Their nervous mood instantly relaxed. It was common knowledge that spacetime creatures were all below divine messengers. Chapter 31-32. The 2 spacetime creatures that rushed out were Wang Yiping's level, which was equivalent to a godly king in this world. They rushed forward, fought, and devoured. The battle ended quickly. Although they were both at the same level, the spacetime creatures had a stronger grasp of the laws. Hence, they were much stronger than a godly king of the same level. This was because the godly kings in this world had yet to awaken. The rank 9 and Mars became the food of the 2 spacetime creatures. After devouring them, they returned to the Sea of Trees. The battle in the distance was still going on. Someone noticed that their leader was killed and exclaimed in fear. Without a leader, the battle became one-sided. These people could not win and could only run. The thick fog rolled and the misty shadow came to the battlefield and reaped the lives of these gods. The desert turned into a swamp. Bubbles bubbled and soil splashed everywhere. Giant crocodiles rushed out from below and killed the spacetime creatures one after another. This battle lasted for a long time. More than 90% of the enemies were killed. The remaining 10% of the gods fled in fear. The spacetime creatures that came were all killed. This was only the first battle. Zichen did not want to kill them all. Moreover, a battle of this level would not help the dark heavenly ant or Fina's spacetime creatures to grow. He planned to wait a little longer. Zack soon received news about the battle. Mars was killed in an instant. This made his face turn ugly. Although the other party was one of the commanders under him who was not considered important, he was still a godly king. How could he be killed in an instant? Seems like they came prepared. Zack snorted and said, "Ask Pitway to lead a team. If the other party is really capable, remember to recruit them and use them for us." The god who passed on the message answered and left. Compared to Mars, who was insignificant, Pitway was Zack's right-hand man. This was because he was a level 5 godly king. In other regions, this level was enough to be the overlord of a force. The number of troops that Pitway could control was dozens or even hundreds of times more than the dead Mars. He led an army of otherworldly creatures, a divine race army, and several god kings to Zichen's location. There had been a great battle here before, but there were no corpses left. Pete did not care about this at all, because creatures from another dimension were very good at cleaning up. "Sir, what should we do now?" a god king asked as he looked at the Sea of Trees on the horizon. "Let's start the war directly. When they can't hold on any longer, they will naturally come out and ask for peace. At that time, we will have the real initiative. If we directly go up and recruit them, we will be very passive, and we will also mistakenly think that we are very strong." With these words, the army began to march forward. Countless creatures from the other spacetime charged forward, slamming into the other spacetime creatures. "Let these cannon fodders fight first. Our people will fight later," Peter said indifferently. He did not step forward. Just like that, he sat down with these god kings and drank with their subordinates. There was a battle at the front and a drinking party at the back. The atmosphere was clearly different. The other Shen clan troops also stayed in the rear and did not join the battle. The number of spacetime creatures was endless, so they were cannon fodders. No matter how many of them died, it would not hurt. But these Shen clan troops could not. Although their combat strength was tyrannical, to cultivate one, it would take countless years. They were elite troops and could not be wasted like this. In fact, in the depths of Peter's heart, he did not want to have these elite troops. He preferred the spacetime creatures. They were cannon fodders, endless in numbers. This way, the battle would be enjoyable. They were like machines born for war. Sometimes, Peter would mutter in his heart. It was so troublesome for the Shen clan to cultivate powerhouses. How could they be on par with the spacetime creatures? They had such war machines. Once they went all out, he believed that they would have destroyed the Shen clan and ruled the heavenly realm. After all, in these years, the forces with the mother nest had all won. When Peter was drinking with his subordinates outside the battlefield, Zichen had already received the news. He was drinking with Monk and the others. For this battle, he was not in a hurry. Because he did not lack resources for the time being. He had just returned, so he let everyone rest and adapt for a period of time. So this battle, under the situation where the leaders of both sides were not in a hurry, lasted for a month. In this month, the space-time creatures were involved in the battle. Both sides had suffered countless casualties. Finishing the last mouthful of wine in the wine pot, Peter stood up and looked at the battle of cannon fodders in front of him. His eyes immediately became sharp. It seems that they will not shed tears until they see the coffin. Everyone, attack. Advance into the dense forest and destroy all the ancient trees. Peter's aura surged. The aura of a level 5 divine king caused the world to lose its color. Kill. There was a loud shout. The Shen clan members who had not participated in the battle since they arrived, charged forward. They were like a sharp blade, cutting the torrent formed by the space-time creatures, and went deep into the forest. At the same time, Peter moved forward from the sky and flew directly into the ancient forest. I'll go and drag their leader out. He flashed directly into the forest. During this time, his powerful aura surged. The ancient trees did not dare to attack him. After more than 10 miles, a light appeared in front of Peter, blocking his way. Seeing the figure in the light, Peter was stunned. It was a half-human half-beast. He looked extremely ugly, but the aura on his body was very strong. He was a level 5 divine king. His expression changed slightly. There was a bad feeling in his heart. Whoosh! The half-human, half-beast rushed towards him, and a powerful force surged out. Peter shouted angrily. A light flashed in his hand, and a long sword appeared. He slashed at the half-human half-beast's neck. A strange power of rules appeared from the half-human half-beast's body. It seemed to form a defense, blocking the attack. Boom! At the same time, the half-human half-beast threw a punch, accompanied by a roar of energy. Peter was sent flying backward. Flying backward and coughing up blood, Peter was shocked. He did not expect the opponent to be so strong. A hint of fear appeared in his heart. He had an impulse to turn around and run. Suddenly, a shrill scream sounded behind him. Hearing that it was the voice of his subordinate, his expression changed again. Whoosh! The half-human half-beast, who was also a level 5 divine king, attacked Peter again. Chapter 31-33. A grade 5 against a grade 5, one had awakened the laws while the other had not. Even though Pete had rich combat experience, the difference in combat strength was still an insurmountable gap. The battle ended quickly. Pete fell into a pool of blood and his corpse was quickly devoured by the creatures from the alternate dimension. On the ground where the battle took place, huge holes appeared one after another. The creatures from the alternate dimension fell into the holes. The dark heavenly ants were waiting for them at the bottom of the holes. The divine tribe elite troops sensed something amiss and chose to retreat. Misty Shadow and Giant Crocodile chased after them while a dark heavenly ant circled behind them. When they charged out and saw the black mass of dark heavenly ants in front of them and every one of them was at the Divine King realm, they were in complete despair. The battle that lasted for a month had ended. The troops that Pete brought were completely annihilated. In the city, Zichen put down his wine cup as a cold glint flashed across his eyes. He did not have the ambition to rule the divine world, but he had to take revenge for the annihilation back then. Divine King Zack was enraged when he heard the news. The loss of Pete this time had hurt him deeply. Damned guy, I'm going to meet him personally. Bring the left and right team with me. Zack decided to make a trip there personally. The left team was a king's team. They were all made up of first-level divine kings. He had nurtured them for many years. The right team was an assassination team. They were also made up of divine kings, but they were the best of the best. They were few in number and specialized in assassination. Other than the left and right teams, he had many elite troops such as the Divine General Army, Divine Tribe Army, ordinary divine messengers and the creatures from the alternate dimension. For the gathering of the army, Zack mobilized more than 60% of his troops. The rest continued to guard the city. The army advanced in a straight line. After a few days, they arrived outside the forest. Zack looked ahead with a cold glint in his eyes. "Who's the leader here? Show yourself." His voice was like thunder. It reverberated in the wilderness and entered the forest. Chen, who was sitting with Monk and the rest, stood up and turned to look outside the forest. Swoosh! In the next moment, his figure disappeared. Tyrant and the others also flew toward the outside world. This was their first battle after returning to this world. At the same time, it was also the signal for them to start a war of revenge. His voice reverberated in all directions as a powerful godly king's aura descended. The creatures from the alternate spacetime below could not move at all. Glancing at those cannon fodders, Zack's eyes were filled with disdain. He could kill countless of these cannon fodders, but he was more concerned about the experts of this force. A ray of light appeared in front of him, and the light transformed into Chen. Behind Chen, Tyrant and the others appeared. "You're the leader here?" Zack stared at Chen and frowned. "That's right," Chen lightly said. His aura was in a restrained state, so Zack could not sense it. At the same time, Monk and the others behind had deliberately suppressed their auras because they had reawakened their laws. Zack, who had yet to awaken, couldn't sense them. "You've got guts. You dare to attack our people?" Seeing that the other party was acting strangely, Zack still didn't give in. "Your backer should be Sandra, right?" Chen lightly said. "How dare you disrespect an expert on the king ranking?" Zack angrily shouted. Chen's lips curled into a disdainful smile. "There were only 36 experts on the king ranking back then, and I didn't see him ranked on it. Back then, you must have received Sandra's order to destroy us, right?" Seeing that Zack was about to say something, Chen said, "There's no need to deliberately explain. I'm just telling you. It doesn't matter. A life for a life. Not only will you die, but your force will also be destroyed. After you die, it will be Sandra's turn." Zack narrowed his eyes and stared at Chen. He coldly said, "With just you? Turn around and look behind you," Chen said with a smile. Zack's face revealed a hint of mockery. "Do you think I'm an idiot? You dare to show off this trick in front of me? When this lord uses this kind of trick?" Chen's expression became even more disdainful and full of ridicule. Before Zack could finish his words, cries of alarm rang out from all around. Zack subconsciously turned around and saw that many black ants had appeared in the distance. These ants had completely surrounded the army he had brought with him. After sensing the aura of these black ants, his pupils suddenly shrank and his expression changed greatly. "Godly kings!" Zack involuntarily cried out in alarm. He turned to look at Chen again, his eyes filled with disbelief. Those countless black ants were actually godly kings, and not just at the first level. At this moment, a chill appeared in his heart. He was secretly angry that he had rashly come here. The other party was hiding such a powerful force. Their losses would definitely be great. Now he finally understood why Peter's army had been completely wiped out. "You only have one chance to live. Let's see if you can grasp it." Just as Zack was shocked and thinking about how to minimize his losses, he heard Chen speak again. A long saber appeared in his hand. The long saber was black and had a scabbard. "If you can survive my attack, I'll let you live," Chen said. Zack snorted coldly. His face was filled with anger. He felt that he was being looked down upon because his opponent was only at the 6th level. They were at the same level, but he dared to boast so shamelessly. Chen looked at him and smiled. Light circulated around his body. The aura of a 6th level godly king was completely released. There was another name for this level. It was called the 6th level. Whoosh! He charged forward. Light circulated around his body. Other than the yin-yang light, there was also the radiance of the lightning body. Zack felt a powerful aura coming from the opposite side. It was as if a peerless beast was pouncing on him. This aura made him feel an endless chill. His expression changed drastically. He immediately mobilized all the energy in his body to form a defense. The long saber was unsheathed. A cold light flashed. When the light faded, Chen was behind Zack. The long saber was already back in its scabbard. Zack stood behind Chen. His expression was frozen. The light that was released from his body gradually faded away. There was a diagonal cut on his body. His eyes were wide open and filled with horror. His soul aura was dissipating. The surroundings were silent. Everyone looked at the scene in shock. A 6th-level godly king was killed just like that. How was this possible? They were at the same level. How could he be defeated in one move? Chen's gaze swept across the surroundings. The eyes of the gods were filled with fear. He waved his hand and said, "Do it. Leave no one alive." The dark heavenly ants guarding the periphery launched an orderly attack under the command of the Ant King. Chapter 31-34. Actually, these people could be recruited, but Chen didn't recruit them because he wasn't familiar with them and couldn't guarantee their loyalty. Plus, he didn't lack a fighting army, so he chose to destroy them. Whether it was the creatures from another spacetime or the dark heavenly ants, they needed energy to grow. These enemies were the energy they needed to grow. Compared to the trial world, the quality of this world's energy was very low, but it won in terms of quantity. The enemies were almost endless. The dark heavenly ants attacked in full force. Under such circumstances, no one could escape. Whether it was the king-class teams or the god kings who were good at assassination, it was the same. They were all wiped out. The battle ended. This time, Chen didn't stop. He led the army of creatures from another spacetime and advanced towards Zack's forces. The dark heavenly ants hid underground, waiting to attack at any time. Monk and the rest followed Chen to battle. Misty Shadow and the giant crocodiles were also on the battlefield. This time, Chen chose to take the initiative to attack. This region was completely ruled by God King Zack, and God King Zack was also God King Sandini's subordinate. The relationship between God King Sandini and Chen was obviously not friendly. Therefore, Chen did not hesitate at all. Everywhere he passed, one city after another was destroyed. After the cities were destroyed, Chen left behind a portion of the resources in the cities. The rest were devoured by the creatures from another spacetime and the dark heavenly ants. Chen's attack speed was very fast. When God King Sandini returned and heard the news, half of the region ruled by God King Zack had already been destroyed. In the end, the place where Chen went was already empty. He could only devour the city core. In a huge plain, Chen's army was blocked. There were even more creatures from another spacetime and countless celestials. Every celestial was at least a god general. Naturally, there were many god kings among them. In the past, the god race and the celestials were eternal enemies. Many years ago, Chen controlled the mother nest to fight. It was already a very impressive thing that shook the world. But this time, Chen realized that the god race and the creatures from another spacetime were no longer enemies. In every battle, he could see the figures of the creatures from another spacetime and the celestials. In the past, the gods could not control the mother nest at all. How could they control it this time? What exactly happened in the god realm? The number of soldiers at the front far exceeded Chen's troops, but they did not attack immediately. Instead, a person flew towards them. Seeing that person, Chen's expression didn't change. He also flew forward. "It really is you." After seeing Chen, the person in front spoke. It was God King Sandini, who had interacted with Chen many times. He was a 9th grade god king and was also a famous expert in the divine world. "You actually managed to come back after going to that place. This is truly surprising," Sacred King Sandini exclaimed. "You know where I went?" Chen looked at him. Who doesn't know about the godly king's ultimate smelting trial ground? But there's another name for that place. I'm afraid you don't know it. It's called the God King's Tomb. None of the god kings who entered were able to come out. Otherwise, this world would have long been occupied by the god kings. Chen's heart trembled. He frowned. If it was the god king's tomb, why would the celestial god send Yi Qian and Xin Lin there? But he quickly guessed the reason. If they didn't go there, what awaited them was certain death. Even if they were lucky enough to survive, they would have to hide for an indefinite period of time, never to rise again. It seemed the celestial god had anticipated the chaos of the god realm when he left. I didn't think you'd be able to come back. This is truly surprising. Sander sighed. Zichen coldly said, I also didn't think a dignified 9th grade god king like you would attack a faction without even a 1st grade god king. Sander said, this region needs to be unified. If you don't accept the invitation, you can only face destruction. Zichen said, that's why I came back for revenge. It's only right and proper. Sander's gaze fell on the creatures behind Zichen. He looked at the spacetime creatures and said, although I know you have other tricks up your sleeve, your path of revenge won't go too far. This region is under my control. This is the general trend. You're too arrogant. This isn't arrogance, this is self-confidence. Absolute self-confidence. Moreover, you'll never understand what it means to be the general trend. The era of celestial gods is over. This is a brand new world, and the new rules will be determined by us. Sander laughed, don't worry, I won't use my absolute power to suppress you. Since this is war, we'll follow the rules of war. Now, enjoy this battle. With that, Sander retreated. As a 9th grade god king, he really didn't attack Zichen. This greatly surprised Zichen. In his opinion, when he met Sander, the god king would be flustered and exasperated by the disastrous losses. He might even try to kill him, and he was prepared for the god king to act. Unexpectedly, Sander didn't make a move. After he retreated, the spacetime creatures used as cannon fodder took the initiative to attack. At the same time, the Celestials and Divines also came over. Zichen didn't hold back. As these spacetime creatures charged forward, the dark heavenly ants emerged from the ground. The aura of countless god kings surged, causing the world to lose its color. Sander was a little surprised to see this, and even a hint of shock flashed through his eyes. However, he still didn't attack Zichen. Instead, he retreated further away. The god kings who came with him to the battlefield took a look at the battlefield and left one after another. Countless dark heavenly ants participated in this battle, and Zichen won as expected. He continued forward and destroyed the city. His steps didn't stop as he continued forward. God King Sandini returned to his mansion and saw a middle-aged man. Sandini looked at the middle-aged man and said, the other side also has a type of war machine. It's very high grade. The lowest grade is at the God King level. What do you mean, God King? The middle-aged man looked at Sander. If we don't use our full strength, my men won't be able to defeat them. Send your men out. Didn't you always say that this kind of battle isn't exciting at all, and there's no difficulty at all? Now, the difficult part is here, said Sander. I'll go to the battlefield to take a look. If it's really an exciting battle, we won't disappoint you, God King. The middle-aged man left Sander's residence and entered the battlefield alone. Then, he saw the massacre caused by the dark heavenly ants from afar. Seeing that the weakest dark heavenly ants were God Kings, a strange glint flashed through the middle-aged man's eyes. The highest intelligent life form? This is interesting. Seems like it's time to get serious. Chapter 31-35. After observing the battlefield, the middle-aged man returned to Sacred King Sander's city. Sacred King Sander was in his residence. Seeing the middle-aged man return, he asked, "How was it?" The middle-aged man smiled. "We found a highly intelligent life form. Like you?" Sacred King Sander asked. The middle-aged man shook his head. "No, it's not an ordinary intelligent life form. Even among us, it's a very high-level one." The God King's eyes lit up when he heard this. The reason why he was able to rise so quickly and stand out among the God Kings of the God Realm was not only because of his own strength, but also because of the other races represented by the middle-aged man. They were like the most terrifying war machines in the world, always with an endless supply of troops. Sacred King Sander knew very well that the other races were divided into ranks. The higher one's rank, the higher one's status, and the higher the level of the creatures they created. "Have your people already gone?" Sacred King Sander asked. "They've already gone. I believe there will be news soon, the middle-aged man said. That's great. Sacred King Sander laughed. In truth, he was not happy at all. He was only cooperating with the middle-aged man, not master and servant. In his opinion, this kind of relationship was very unreliable. He was very annoyed. If he had known Zi Chen had this kind of trick, he would have gone alone. Now it was too late for regrets. The other races had already made their move, so he had no part to play. Outside the ancient forest, many beings from another space-time appeared. In this world, they were called Celestials. The weakest Celestial was a general. At this time, countless Celestials appeared outside the forest, heading in a straight line. Shua, Shua, Shua. Countless Celestials rushed into the forest, but they did not cause any powerful fluctuations. Like clay oxen entering the sea, they disappeared without a trace. Behind them were many Tian clans, and among them, there would naturally be divine kings. They looked at the silent forest and frowned, as if this was different from their original plan. At this time, thousands of Celestials had already entered. A battle should have broken out long ago. Could it be that this forest was just for show and had no fighting strength? Boom. There was a vibration in front, but it was only one sound. Then everything returned to normal. Go inside and take a look. The Sky Race leader who was in charge of leading the group waved his hand and said to the God Kings. They nodded, and then followed the divine generals and the celestial race into the depths. Once they entered the forest, it was completely quiet. However, the faint smell of blood in the air made them feel extremely uneasy. As they continued to venture deeper, they did not encounter any danger. In fact, they could even see people moving in front of them. However, what puzzled the divine kings of the Tian clan was, where did the smell of blood come from? Also, where did the previous battle fluctuations come from? In the next moment, their vision blurred, and they discovered that they couldn't see anything. The leader who was waiting outside looked at the quiet surroundings and felt a sense of panic in his heart. He said loudly, "Did you find anything?" Apart from the rustling of leaves, there was no other sound in the forest. "Where is he?" The leader raised his voice again, "Hurry up and reply." After saying these words, his forehead was already full of cold sweat, and a strong sense of fear emerged in his heart. He was a sixth-stage divine king, so he shouldn't be afraid. "Do it," he shouted again, and his voice spread in all directions. The divine generals who were trying to rush into the forest all stopped and attacked the forest in front of them. At this moment, the dark world was illuminated by all kinds of energy, and energy fluctuations rang out. The ancient trees lit up one after another, and their branches began to extend, either attacking or defending. Hearing the energy fluctuations that were no longer quiet, the leader, who was drenched in cold sweat, felt slightly relieved. "Kill your way in." He stood outside and did not take any further action. He only watched as his subordinates entered the forest. At this moment, the forest was like a black hole. All the celestial race who entered seemed to have fallen into a bottomless black abyss. After all the people behind him had entered the forest, he was shocked to find that there was still not much movement in the forest. Occasionally, there would be some small waves. A strong sense of fear emerged in the sixth-stage divine king's heart, and he subconsciously wanted to escape. Just as he turned around, he saw a person standing behind him. Looking at the existence in front of him who clearly belonged to the celestial race, the sixth-stage leader shouted, "Who are you?" "The person who wants your life." The sixth-stage aura erupted. A sixth-stage divine king against a sixth-stage divine king. The battle between the same level quickly ended. The middle-aged man stayed in divine King Sander's city, where he had a special residence. At this moment, he was waiting for good news. Zi Chen would definitely not bring the Ant Queen with him when he fought with those black ants. His goal was to capture the Ant Queen and control it. He saw that the highest level of those black ants was only level 5, so he was very confident. Not long after, the news came. However, it was not good news, but bad news. The celestial race team that went forward was completely annihilated. How is this possible? When the middle-aged man heard the news, he immediately sat up in disbelief. However, the news that came back was obviously not fake. This caused his expression to become extremely ugly. He was unable to understand what was going on. Could it be that Zichen was still holding back, and there were even stronger experts that he had not sent out? Just as those celestial races were attacking Zichen's forest city, Zichen was still advancing triumphantly. Wherever he passed, one city after another was destroyed. He did not occupy them, only destroyed them, and then plundered their resources to allow the dark heavenly ant to grow. He already knew about the attack on the city, but he did not care. Now, his city had long become an unconquerable city, unless a celestial god personally made a move. However, there were no celestial gods in this world. In a situation where he did not have to worry about the rear, Zichen naturally attacked without any worries. He did not seek to occupy a large territory. He only wanted revenge. On the battlefield, countless creatures from another spacetime were killed. This battle was not so much a battle with the divine race, but rather a battle with the creatures from another spacetime. Before Divine King Sander could form an effective defense, Zichen had already conquered Zack's forces in an extremely short period of time. In a short period of time, a force was conquered. Zichen's rise shook the entire region. For a moment, the attention of the other major forces also fell on Zichen's side.